Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome.
It's a little
Public, étranger, stranger.
It's a little Adam Sandler for me today, Adam.
Oh, wow.
How dare you?
How dare.
Oh my gosh, this brings up a thing I've wanted to correct.
Famous Jewish person, Adam Sandler.
That's not what I wanted to say.
It brings up the fact that he's the most popular Jewish person we know.
There was a podcast we recorded a long time ago. I don't even remember what episode it was, but it was Dear Evan Hansen, because I was talking about the idea that it was like Ben Platt doing his like genius thing where he gets to do whatever he wants, but before he's a genius. But I like interrupted myself midway through a sentence and said like an Adam Sandler thing, and it made it seem like I was calling Adam Sandler a genius. But let me clarify for the listeners that what I meant was it's the thing that geniuses do, and also Adam Sandler has been allowed to do. I am not calling Adam Sandler a genius. Sorry if that's controversial to anyone listening today.
Wow. Molly's out for blood today.
So brave and yet so true.
Welcome back.
Thank you for that corrections corner.
Thank you for corrections corner from 9 months ago.
Yeah, well, it's the only wrong thing I've ever said on this podcast, so.
Yeah. Molly, how are you?
I'm great. I have an anecdote for today's opener.
By all means, take it away.
Let's do an anecdote. So I recently graduated from a large research university, and we pretty frequently get emails about study participants.
I feel like we didn't talk about this on the pod at all.
Adam,
what degree did you get?
Oh my God. The evil. And listeners, you're not seeing the slow turn to an evil smile from Adam as he said that. Yeah.
It's necessary context for the thing.
Belongs.
It's necessary context for this anecdote, okay? I'm not trying to bring up my degree for no reason.
I am so busy. You guys don't understand. I'm working on my dissertation.
I'm on it. It's about a listserv. It's a story about a listserv. That's the point of the story.
A what?
I'm on a listserv, right?
What's that?
It's like a collection of emails when you put everybody on a list together. But what's important about a listserv to understand is that if you reply to a listserv, it goes to everyone on the listserv.
Oh, sure.
Not just to the people who wrote the email. So we very frequently will get study recruitment emails, right? Of like, this department's doing this study. We're looking for people like this to be in it. We got an email about an ophthalmology study to look at the size of your pupils. And someone responded to the listserv, which I'm going to say conservatively has thousands of people on it, potentially hundreds of thousands.
Don't reply all,
and wrote,
girls.
I find these emails very annoying and almost insulting. Please use your own people. They are as good as mine. What do you mean? I don't know why one would find a study recruitment about pupils insulting.
So offensive.
I'm so stuck on the word insulting. What is insulting about this? We assumed you had eyes. I don't understand. And then use your own pupil singular. They are as good as mine. So firstly,
well, that's progressive, the singular plural.
You know. That's what I was missing.
That's what you're
so like, you know that there's more than one person that has to be in studies, right? Like, does this person think that just they individually
it's just one person,
these emails? And then they're like, I don't understand why these scientists just don't use their own eyes as the whole thing. And they're as good as mine. That is rather the question the study's trying to answer, isn't it? That's rather why we do studies.
That's the scientific method.
A scientific method, baby.
Honestly, maybe it's a stunt. It's self-marketing.
I do love people that like can't, because like we'll have this sometimes at work. Everyone in a corporate life enjoys this idea of like the accidental mass reply all.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a chain of people being like, please remove me from this thread. And it's like, if everyone just stopped replying to it, it would be done.
It stops.
But you are now contributing to it. So
Yeah, I will say this one thing for university life is that I feel like we're pretty good at avoiding the email, the chains of take me off the
Emails.
reply all thing.
Yeah.
People usually see it and they think, oh, that's embarrassing for that person, and they all keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
So that was a fun thing that happened today.
Also, this is the longest that I feel like we haven't like talked to each other. It's been like
Yeah, it's been a while
been a
since we
month,
recorded,
yeah.
everyone. And it's been even longer for the podcast listeners because they've missed a couple episodes since RJ deleted them.
And you know what? People will never know what we first thought of Les
The
Mis
first
and
time we
Evita.
watched it.
The first time we ever saw Les Mis and
I
Evita.
still can't decide if I'm going to rewatch those films.
That's truly a problem for another version of Adam. That's so far down the line.
Yeah, that's true. Months from now.
Because we've definitely
Months.
thought about rewatching like season 1 movies with you, but
we were
like,
just talking about it this weekend.
but now we have to rewatch movies that we already talked about with you. Oh my god!
This podcast is becoming more and more labor intensive. Please, someone sponsor us.
Please.
Please.
If anyone wants to do my research for me, for
Yeah,
no
if anyone wants an
fee whatsoever,
internship where your only work is
and you're paid an experience.
yeah.
I don't want someone to do my
Proud.
research for me. I just want someone to pay me for the time I spend doing it.
Yeah,
but
but
that's
my research
rather
is,
my whole life.
my research is Wikipedia, so it's not like I'm like doing research. You know
Here's
what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
The
Here's the
resources at the
concept.
end of the
Yeah.
episode doc is never from Adam.
Right.
Let's say that.
What-
That's why.
what
That's
I
why I
would
don't
like-
put. I don't put
yeah.
a reference in my in the
Hmm.
references section.
Yeah.
What's there to reference? Another page of references.
Yeah, that's how information works nowadays, unfortunately. What I would love is for someone to just hire me to be a tenure track professor and then you pay me to do research all of the time. So if anybody listening is on the hiring committee for a theater department in a higher institution.
Yeah.
Molly, I think you need
Yeah.
a doctorate for that.
Oh gosh, where could I ever get one of those? It's so unfortunate. What have I been doing the last 6
Right.
years of my
Yeah,
life?
it's tough. That's tough. Molly, this week, you have to summarize the plot of Cabaret,
I do.
and I don't envy you, to be honest.
I
Um,
have written it out as an A plot and a B plot, and I feel that I should get credit if I get the A plot done in the minute. And then it's like a bonus point if I can get them both.
Sure.
On the report card that you both been keeping
Yeah,
on
yeah.
me, right? Yeah.
Well, what's your progress
What we
report?
should have done is on the summary order Google sheet, we keep track of a point system after how they do. How
We
I
can
don't
go
think,
back.
I don't think anyone would have any points at this point.
We've had some. No, Molly's made
I
few,
feel
yeah.
confident that I've made it a couple times.
Molly's made
RJ
it a
has
couple
no
times. I have
points.
no
RJ has no
points.
points. We
I have
all
no
know that.
points. Yeah.
Because he'll be like, in 1931 Berlin. And then by the end, it's like, life is a cabaret.
You gotta set the stage,
Let's
you know?
go back to Prussia to understand the context. And Sally's like, who, you? And Brian's like, absolutely not. And then,
So the Maccabees were blessed by 8 nights of oil.
Oh my God.
Okay, Molly, this is your 1-minute challenge, and your time starts now.
In 1931 Berlin, cabaret singer Sally Bowles meets a new lodger for the boarding house in which she lives, Cambridge PhD student Brian Roberts. Brian offers English lessons out of Sally's room, and the two grow close. When Sally first comes on to Brian, he rejects her, heavily implying that he is gay, but they eventually become lovers. Baron Maximilian von Hune comes into town and begins to woo both Sally and Brian. The throuple gets awkward, Max dips to the next town, and Sally then finds out she's pregnant but can't be sure of the paternity. Brian reacts positively at first, but he eventually withdraws, and Sally chooses to have an abortion. Brian returns to England, and Sally re-embraces her life in the cabaret. B plot, one of Brian's
20
students
seconds.
is Fritz Wendell, who is desperate for an income stream and manages to slowly seduce the wealthy Jewish heiress Natalia Landauer. Natalia won't marry Fritz because he's Christian, prompting him to reveal to Brian that he's in fact Jewish, but lied on his papers, and he fears that confessing will cause Natalia to reject him as a liar and his friends to reject him as a Jew. However, when he eventually tells Natalia his true identity, they immediately get married.
Wow.
1 minute exactly. Congrats to Molly. Because you were in under a minute, we don't have to do the rest of the episode. So
We are
Life
done
is
with
a cabaret.
all
That was very good.
Wait, open the screen.
I don't know that
the
anyone
sheet. Save it
heard
now.
the last couple sentences of the summary because of how fast I was talking. But
Open the what?
Click the sheet, so we mark that as a
A
1
win.
point.
a 1 point.
No, Molly gets 2. She did 2 plots.
Wow. Well, now we're just gonna have to do intricate movies to get extra points.
I think maybe just give me a 1.5. Two seems unfair. I want to be fairly evaluated. I want real rigor in this process.
Have you ever seen Cabaret before?
I have not. Thank you for asking. I have never seen this movie. I just know it's a classic piece of Candor and Ebb. Pieces of Candor and Ebb music. I've seen like the song Cabaret in different versions. I feel like multiple. It's a musical theater standard in people's books. So I feel like I've seen different YouTube videos and like different divas singing this as part of their repertoire. And I've seen, obviously, at Musical Mondays at Sidetrack, like seeing Cabaret. I think that's the only one that I've seen on there. But
They don't
Yeah,
do Willkommen?
They never do
No.
Willkommen. They never do Maybe This Time.
Mine Air?
They never do
No.
Mein Air, no. Not that we
I want to say they may do Maybe This Time.
I don't think they do because Maybe This Time is weird because it has
It's like
the
the
interstitials. I think they do the Glee Maybe This Time.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no. I also, as I was saying that title, want to say that Rita did take German in college, and I feel like is going to send me some notes about our pronunciation in this
pronunciation.
episode. So just so everybody can be just as self-conscious as I'm.
Danke. Dankeschön.
Bitte. Deutschland. Is that it? That's all you had to say?
And so I do remember watching the
Your memories. Why'd you check your notes?
You interrupted me, so when
Oh,
we
okay.
were talking, I thought we were done with my section.
No,
So
I'm letting you continue.
now Adam's a little fresh today because he took a 90-minute nap.
I did.
And I remember watching the clip of Tomorrow Belongs to Me, but I don't remember if it was in high school and someone showed it to me in high school, or if it was Adam who showed it to me in freshman year.
I didn't. From this movie?
Yeah.
I did not because that was the first time I'd ever seen it.
Oh, okay. So someone in high school, Matt, Antonio, I know you're listening. Someone showed this to me in high school. We watched this clip. I just remember being like, "Oh my god, it's Nazis!" Like at the end, and I thought that was like a big.
Why? Yeah, why would someone show you just that song? That seems almost like someone was trying to hate crime you.
I just don't know if it was trying to just be like. I wonder if I was. I don't remember. If it was like a learning thing. Like I was either learning about like musicals in general. It may have been like someone older, like to show like
You refusing to tell me. I had to talk to a kid today at camp who I think was kind of in like a bullying situation, and it was very like I don't know what happened. Like didn't want to tell me what was going on, and I feel like the way you're talking about this
it's like,
makes me
"Oh,
feel like
no, it's
you were
not
being
that."
bullied by somebody, and
Yeah,
you're trying to be
yeah.
like it was. I don't know. Maybe it was someone that I don't know, or I don't know what happened. Somehow I watched this clip of Nazis, and I don't remember the context at all.
Yeah, I wasn't in a toxic high school environment of an all boys school in Arizona. No, yeah, I just remember seeing this number. So now I don't remember. So Matt, Antonio, please tell me where I saw this clip. And I always just thought that it was about the cabaret hiding Jewish people, because I think like every single piece of Nazi Germany, like Jewish, like movie, play, whatever, primarily involves, like rescuing Jews from Germany or, Nazi occupied Europe. So I was kind of waiting for it, like, oh, are they going to hide the heiress or some reason in the cabaret and she's going to be one of the dancers? No, that was not part of the narrative. So
It's not even
I was
remotely part of the narrative.
very
Wow.
surprised. I was like, oh, that has nothing to do with it. Great.
So I saw this show at a community theater production, South Bend Civic Theater. Shout out to the girl being the theater herself.
Okay.
They did a production of it in I was in high school. I was not in the production. I just saw it. And I didn't really know anything about it other than that, I should know Cabaret, but I didn't know what it was about. So the gag of it being about Nazis, really blew my mind. And I do remember the Tomorrow Belongs to Me sequence, which happens much earlier in the stage version. the slow reveal, because they did a pinpoint spotlight on the kid's head and the room was dark, so you couldn't see what he was wearing, and then it slowly gets bigger as he sings the song. And because at first it's like a young tenor, very cute twink energy, and then you reveal terror, and that's a good gag. But also, unfortunately, the Kristen Chenoweth Leah Michele duo of Maybe This Time in season 1 of Glee is also formative.
You are correct. It is the Glee version that they show on Sidetracks. Because now I'm remembering, yeah, because they sing it in 2 different places in the show, right?
Right, because Leah Michele's character Rachel Berry is auditioning for the production of Cabaret that Sue Sylvester is directing at the school. And Kristen Chenoweth, who had never graduated from high school, comes back to join the Glee Club so they can win sectionals. And she auditions for the Glee Club with the song as well. So they cut between the both of them.
Glee is such a stain on the national consciousness.
Say that. That was actually your dissertation, wasn't it?
Yeah, Glee, a stain on the national consciousness, a dissertation by Molly Mattei.
And she'll never be able to read it, which is crazy.
Leah Michele, not you.
Do you not know
Is that the Twitter thing now? Is that she's illiterate?
Oh, been like
it's
the
a
thing
whole
for
internet
years.
thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
like there's
okay.
like people truly do not believe she can read.
That's
it's-
so funny.
It's so funny. It's giving Annie 2014.
No! This is her opportunity.
We agreed to never talk about that movie again.
Well, when the opportunity
Opportunity.
Opportunity standing right in front of me.
It's been 55 minutes on this Zoom
No,
call.
it's not. No. You started
No,
the Zoom call way
Zoom call,
earlier.
the Zoom
call,
yeah,
the
Zoom call.
when you
Yes.
got on. Oh my god! I almost
like,
my butthole just clenched so hard. I was like,
oh my God. That's right.
It's fine. There's like no historical context we need to go over.
No, we're just gonna run through the
right.
plot
Super
and then we're
and then call it
super
a
good.
day.
Super cash.
Molly.
Yeah. Okay. So I first watched this movie in high school, and I remember I was like with a group of friends, and I was only like partially paying attention, but I had kind of a similar experience to Adam because I very much remember that it was with my high school friends because we cut to the scene with Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and I said something about like, oh, look at that Boy Scout, and then it zooms out, and I said, oh no, it's a Nazi, and that became like an inside joke with my friend group that
Oh
that
no, it's
happened.
a Nazi.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like though, because the first time I watched it, I was both too young to like, I think really understand all of the nuances of what was happening. And I watched it like in a group. I had a long time of like, I feel like I don't really get Cabaret. Like I know it exists, but I don't know that I understand it. And then I wrote this in the notes and one of you wrote, sorry, what? In response to this. So like there was some theater person, like a director I worked with or like someone in a youth program, I don't know, that said one time that the song Maybe This Time is dramatically important because at the beginning of the song, she doesn't know what she's going to do about the pregnancy. And by the end, she's decided she's going to have an abortion. And I was like, I don't feel like I remember that being what that song was about. And then I rewatched the movie and I was like, either it's totally different in the stage show or that person was just straight wrong because she's definitely not even pregnant. And I think that the fact that someone had said that was contributing to my anxiety of like, I guess I didn't get Cabaret because I like, if she does have an abortion at that song, then that I like really missed all of the context clues of that. It's very clear she has an abortion. That's not subtle at all.
But it's like an hour later.
It's like an hour later. It's like not related to that at all. So I am glad that now I've rewatched it and now I feel very confident that Cabaret is not that complicated of a film. I actually do understand what's happening in it. Yeah. So I'm glad that we watched it for that. And I will say I really enjoyed this watch. I feel like in terms of just watching experiences that we've had for the pod, this is pretty high up there of just like enjoying it just as a movie in and of itself.
Yeah, yet again, the movie musicals of the 1970s that are like dramatic pieces really pop off. Like I'm thinking of Fiddler on the Roof, but like this is a very good movie.
It's a good movie.
And there's a lot that's different from the stage version, which I'll talk about, but like I think I just think there are a lot of really brilliant choices made.
And good in a very different way from how Sound of Music is good. And sorry, also Sound of Music, but I meant to say Singing in the Rain because that's the one that we watched recently. Singing in the Rain, I think, is like a perfect movie musical, but this is like a better movie, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, and also almost doesn't function as a movie musical because the songs are all diegetic.
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely want to discuss that.
For sure.
But I'll put a pin on it for now.
So the origins of this, besides the origins of Nazism, which I'm not going to talk about, but Molly might lead us into a 4-hour conversation on.
I'm not going to, but you did all this background on Cabaret as a story, and I told you over text that I was going to do that research, so we did double up. But
You said you were going to do research on the Weimar Republic.
I don't think I said just the Weimar Republic.
Molly!
I'll go back to the receipts.
I misinterpreted that as...
History of
completely
Cabaret,
different-
capital C, and the historical context of it.
Whatever. Well, then we're going to tag team. Look
Okay.
at that. So the origins of this story come from Goodbye to Berlin, a 1939 novel penned by Christopher Isherwood. He is a British novelist or just writer, I guess. What's the difference? Is it means you only write novels if you're a novelist? And you're just a
Or, like,
writer if you
you've
write?
published a novel. You're
I
a
think-
known novel.
I think you
writer?
really have to just have published a novel, is my guess.
Well, then great. He's a novelist. It's a novel based on some of his experiences during the fall of the Weimar Republic. It's basically a series of sketches showing the dilapidation of Berlin from like the seedy underbelly of the like cabaret scene and kind of like that debauchery, but also like the villas and the kind of like more general society and how it's all crumbling around them. It is really about Isherwood and it's based on his he's gay. It's based on his relationship with Jean Ross, who sang at lesbian bars and cabarets at the time. And then she ended up I don't know how much of this is like this is the novel, this is the, you know what I mean? Like that those lines were blurred. But either she herself or just the character Sally Bowles that Jean Ross is based on, she ends up getting pregnant and he pretends to be the father to help her get an abortion. However, it's a botched abortion due to carelessness by the doctor and she almost dies. And then she doesn't. And then he ends up leaving Berlin, barely escaping the Nazis, surging to power. And then most of his friends are left behind in Berlin. And this is real life. Either they fled themselves or they were sent to concentration camps.
So all the stuff about the botched abortion is from his actual life.
Okay. Wow.
Is that no? I'm asking you.
Oh.
That information was not in the article I read. Yeah.
Then it's probably just saying that that's what happens in the story. It was kind of like a weird, muddled...
Strangely written. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the article I read talked about the story, but not how it aligned with his own life. So I don't know the answer to that. Nor did I read the original story.
Yeah.
But
You
I
didn't
can
pick
tell.
up the novel?
I didn't.
I
Well,
didn't.
it's a
Or the
short
play.
story that then got.
Oh.
It's a short story that got like then put into a collection, very much like the Meet Me in St. Louis
Mhm.
source. So what I know about it is that Sally Bowles is named after Paul Bowles, who was a novel or a short story writer. Now you're in
Ooh.
my head, short story writer and composer. And apparently he met Isherwood in Berlin. I couldn't find in the article I read, the actual academic article, it didn't say why she'd be named after Paul Bowles. So then I went to Wikipedia to learn more about Paul Bowles, and that said that they had met together in Berlin, but it didn't have a citation on it. So I guess they knew each other somehow. What's interesting about Paul Bowles, and I don't know if this influenced his choice of basis for the name, is that apparently his writing like exposed a lot of horrors of civilization, but his music was actually like very light, and so he was like this weird figure because of that. But a nitty gritty, like
Kesha.
in the details fact. Yes, he was the Kesha of the time, is what everybody says. And he also composed for American musical theater, including works by Tennessee Williams and William Saroyan. I'm guessing is how you say it.
Saroyan.
Who was famously the author of Adam.
Time of Your Life.
Would you like to tell the listeners about Time of Your Life?
When Adam,
I could not tell you what Time of Your Life is about, even though I was one of the two main characters.
Adam played mask drag.
I don't understand. I think it's supposed to be like profound,
Yeah.
and I don't get
It-
it.
it's
I
very-
haven't read it though since I was a freshman in college,
Yeah.
so we've learned a lot.
But it's
since
like
then.
it's this bar. There is a sense of like bleakness of life because it's like these rotating characters in this bar. They go
It's
through their
Cheers,
different
but
things.
sad.
Sad Cheers. I
Sad
played
Cheers.
the character named Arab, where I did a Filipino accent, and our director said, "Sounds great.
Sounds Arab to me.
Sounds Arab to me."
Great.
The second cast was an actual person with like Middle Eastern descent. So
And I played the male romantic lead who is like
Yeah.
a Lenny from Mike.
yes,
and
very
Men
Lenny
type.
energy. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Adam, I really admire you in many ways as a human being and as a performer specifically.
Mhm.
You've given some performances that I found to be really inspiring and
The
hilarious.
armadillo.
Great.
Remember the armadillo
But
from freshman year?
You cannot play a straight man.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Because even when you played like the hot Mikado character, he still had like a little sugar in his bowl. Like that was like part of the
Oh yeah,
characterization.
sugar in his bowl is a great phrase.
Yes, like he was like a gay drunk with power.
Yeah.
Type of situation.
Yeah, it's easy, but it's the same as, well, it's not the same because I did play him gay. Well, no, because I was in love with what's her name in
Kadisha. Yes.
no.
In
Night.
12th Night, you were in love with
What is her name?
Olivia of oh my god, the damn lady of the house or whatever. No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it is Olivia.
Olivia.
Okay. But also that was like by energy. I don't know.
Yeah, and we didn't Anne stage it so that you ended up with
Warren.
With
Yeah.
yes,
Sebastian.
Sebastian at the end.
No, not Sebastian. Antonio.
Antonio.
Yeah.
But I think that it's easier to play somebody who is like straight, quote unquote, if you're gay, if the thing they're really after is not love but power.
Mm.
Because then there's like a weird, there's like a
Mm.
side.
And that's Adam's
comment from the
dissertation.
Interesting. This is way better than Cabaret.
side. No, Cabaret is really good.
No, it's really, really good. I'm glad that we're doing all these diversions.
it's
And again,
better
an
than-
extremely complicated thing.
It's better than a time of your life.
Oh, that's for sure. So anyway, back to Isherwood. Sally Bowles, the story was first published in 1937, and there was also a second story called The Landauers, which is the source of the B plot, and that was published together with Sally Bowles in the collection Goodbye Berlin. So there's a couple different stories that end up as the basis, and then there is a play adaptation called I Am a Camera, which then also had a film adaptation of the same name, and all three of those, it sounds like, got pulled from for the musical.
Oh, cool.
I Am a Camera, 1951, was adapted into a play by John Van Druten. It starred five-time Tony Award winner Julie Harris in her first winning role. It's kind of the only thing I really found out about it.
Yeah, there wasn't much about that.
was
It just was
truly
like
not
that
much.
it exists, and then I
Yeah.
think it had like fleshed out the story more was kind of my feeling on it. It didn't seem like there was anything significant about that play
Right.
/ film.
The part where we really start to divulge from the origins of the story,
Diverge.
yeah,
You
is
said
Cabaret.
divulge.
Oh, diverge. Diverge from the origins of the story is the 1966 stage adaptation of the musical Cabaret based on I Am a Camera, which is based on Goodbye to Berlin. So this is music and lyrics by John Kander and Fred Ebb, both who are Jewish. That is important. And it started in 1963. There was an option by David Black, who was a producer, to create a musical based on I Am a Camera with composer Sandy Wilson, who had done The Boyfriend, which Julie Andrews starred in, and she was going to have Julie Andrews play Sally Bowles. So, like, a different world. you know what I
Very
mean?
different. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
different world. But then, like, it's funny because her manager apparently shut it down because the character's immorality, it was like, would go against her
Her
clean image. But by 63, she hadn't done Mary Poppins, or she had only done Eliza and Camelot at this point.
But that character, that manager was probably smart. And I
Sure.
don't think Julie Andrews would have the career she's had if we didn't have this vision of her as this like perfect, pure grandma type
Right.
of.
And
yeah.
then she's allowed to do Victor Victoria's like good because you're taking what we know of Julie. Like it's because
Right.
we know Julie Andrews is this one thing and she's subverting it, which is great.
Mhm.
So time lapse and the option was picked up instead by Harold because the David Black version ran out of time. Harold Prince, Hal Prince, commonly known in theater communities. Kander and I were approached and offered to create music in a more traditional book style format, which I had to like double check that I knew what book style format means, which truly just means like the songs are in the scene and they're advancing the plot. Traditional musicals inspired by Oklahoma, Showboat, stuff like that.
So just like
the regular
integrated
musicals.
musical.
Yep.
Okay.
I was confused because the movie does not have any songs in the scenes that I was like, maybe I'm wrong about what it means. This is where the movie differs, but we'll talk about that later. So characters were altered from the original source. That is super important to remember. The audience were originally startled with the curtain being already raised, no overture, just a cymbal crash to start the show.
Oh, Molly would have loved that original production.
Yes, honey,
I'm
get
ready to
to
go.
it.
Let's go.
And then because Kander and Eb decided to do two styles of songs, so songs that are obviously in scene, sung by the characters, but also social commentary songs that introduce different themes throughout the plot of the show, which are what and all up in the film. The audience took a little bit of time to understand like the difference between the two, but they finally like caught on and it was fine. I have to quickly tell you the plot of the stage version because there is like wild differences. So Cliff, an American straight writer, comes to Berlin and meets Sally, who is an English chanteuse.
Oh my god.
Straight.
Who works at the
We
Kid
do
Club.
those characters in this show? We talk about straights?
Yeah.
Okay.
He lives in
Yikes.
Fraulein Schneider's boarding house, and Sally comes to stay with him after she is kicked out of her boyfriend's house. Herr Schultz, an elderly Jewish fruit seller who also lives in the boarding house, has romantic feelings for Fraulein Schneider. Sally reveals she is pregnant and wants to have an abortion. This is like 20 minutes into the show. So we're okay. But Cliff urges her not to, as it could be his child as well. Fraulein Kost, a prostitute who lives in the house, sex worker. I just didn't change the verbiage from the article, sorry. Has been seen with many men in her room, and when confronted by Fraulein Schneider, she reveals she has seen Schneider and Schultz together in Schneider's room. He proposes, but he is like, well, it's okay because Fraulein Schneider and I are going to be married. And then she walks away, whatever, and Fraulein Schneider's like, thanks for saving me from that, ha ha ha. And then he's like, no, but will you marry me? And it's very sweet. Cliff has agreed to smuggle contraband from Paris to Berlin for Ernst Ludwig, who now sports a Nazi armband. Kost tells Ernst that Schultz is Jewish, and he warns Schneider that it's a bad idea to be with him. In Act 2, the fruit shop gets a brick thrown through the window. Schneider and Schultz have called off the engagement due to fears around violence and retaliation. Sally and Cliff argue about escaping from Berlin due to rising political tension, but Sally is assured to stay and sing at the club because life is easy and carefree there. Cliff gets in a fight with Ernst due to anti-Semitic comments and is beaten up and tossed out of the Kit Kat Club. The next morning, he finds Schultz moving out to another boarding house, but confident that these difficult times will pass, for after all, he's German at heart. Sally arrives home and reveals she had an abortion. Cliff slaps her, but still wants her to leave with him to Paris. She refuses, but tells him to dedicate his novel to her. The show ends with the MC saying goodbye and a loud cymbal crash.
Interesting. It feels
yeah.
more of like what's going on in the boarding house, really. Like these are the cast of characters that live here. And
Correct.
It's a bit of a barrio, if you will.
yes.
Because the play I Am a Camera takes place entirely
In
in
the boarding house.
The boarding
Mm,
house.
okay.
It does not go to the Kit Kat Club.
I'm gonna look at the Wikipedia page, which I assume is where you got the summary from, because I'm curious to know where maybe this time happens in the stage show to see if this explains that
That
director
explains
comment
that,
that's
yeah.
always bothered me.
I can help you. I can tell you where it happens. First of all, maybe this time is not in the original stage production of Cabaret.
Okay.
It was added to the film. However, since then,
the
it has been
film.
worked back into it.
Mhm.
And it is when she originally finds out about the pregnancy and wants to have an abortion, but Cliff urges her not to, as it could be his child as well. However, what your teacher said about her deciding at the end of the song to have an abortion really still doesn't make sense, because that doesn't happen until the end of Act 2.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's not like a show where it's like, and later on, that very same day. Like, it's not like one of those shows.
It does make sense too that I see how that song makes sense in the context of maybe I should try to
Deciding.
make this work.
Yeah.
I guess I could see it being some if that were how you wanted to use it, I could see it also being like one of those songs that like it starts in the fantasy and then you lose the fantasy by the end, and
Mhm.
how you played it could maybe convey that. But very interesting. I don't remember who said that, but you've tormented me for years, and I'm going to release your hold over me. Do you know what I'm also realizing, though? I wonder if they said the opposite thing, because that would also explain it. If they said she's not sure if she's going to have an abortion, and by the end she decides she wants to keep it. And then later in the show she changes that decision, but that would also make sense.
That would
it's
make
a song
sense.
where she's
yeah.
deciding, okay, I'm going to make it work with Cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have more to tell you about Cliff and his iterations.
Sure.
Okay, so Clifford Bradshaw in the Isherwood story, Sally says the line, "Somehow I couldn't possibly be in love with you," which Isherwood then later said in like his own biography offers the possibility that Sally senses that he's homosexual, but he like doesn't really take a stance on like this was or wasn't my intention, but it seems like maybe he's often read as gay in the original story. Then it's like hard turn, I am a camera, now he's straight.
Yeah.
And also in the original stage show, as you said, he's straight. So then Fosse turned him into a bisexual?
Sure.
And then it said in the article that I read too, which by the way, let me say that the title, this is very unacademic-y of me that I haven't given this person credit yet. The article I read was called "Is Life a Cabaret? Cabaret and Its Sources in Reality and the Imagination" by Jeffrey Block, published in Studies in Musical Theater.
Wow, that is an essay that R.J. Silva would have written in college. Absolutely, that's my kind of title. I love a cheeky long title.
Oh, gotcha. I thought for a second that you were just like, I just could have done this.
I could have done this. Absolutely.
I could have been published in undergrad. It's casual. It's fine.
I've had these notes in my documents all along.
Oh my God, this man stole my notes. This is fraud. This is plagiarism. Okay, anyway, it said in the article as well that in the 1993 revival, then he was, quote, a confirmed bisexual. However, here's my question for you two. Do you
bisexuality
think that Brian
is real?
Can people be bisexual?
What is bisexuality?
Hey, here's my question for you two. What is that?
No, my question is, do we think Brian in the film is bisexual?
No, I think he's gay.
Well, first of all, we can never decide a person's sexuality.
We can never decide. That's true.
And sexuality is fluid.
Fluid.
This is obviously not a commentary on whether people are bisexual. Just to be clear,
absolutely.
People are bisexual.
We're talking about a fictional character.
I'm talking about this specific character
portrayal,
and the specific way that his sexuality is portrayed.
Yes.
How do you two read the character?
Okay, so he definitely like has a lot of sex with Sally.
Yeah.
And he's definitely having sex with the Baron.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I guess he's bisexual, but the performance gives more Sally is the like one that's like different.
Oh,
like he feels gay, but is like
Sally is the one
on a
woman.
Kinsey.
Yeah.
On a Kinsey scale.
Because I think he definitely has elements of Sally that he admires, just like as a person, her being outgoing, like how charmed he is by her. But I feel like that first scene where she tries to sleep with him and he's very like, no, I'm sorry. It felt very clear. So I think that's why like the turn of in the movie when she sings Maybe This Time and it's like they fall in love. I don't know.
They have great chemistry.
They do have really good chemistry. So that's why it's like, I think that's, makes the question harder to answer.
Yeah. Okay. I'm reading it the same way. And I mean, yeah, I definitely read it like the same way that like sometimes people, I think this is legit to be like, I'm straight, but there was like this one person of the same gender that I did have a relationship with. That I think the opposite can be true too, that you can be gay, but you're like, there's this one person, there's just like something about them that kind of broke the rules of like how in general.
I'm in love with you.
Oh, good. I did feel like,
oh, great.
I was like, there's got to be some sort of a joke about this thruple and the three of us on this podcast together, but like, I haven't quite found it yet.
You are our Sally Bowl.
You're our Sally Bowl.
Your collective Sally. This is a totally three-way. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Super into it. We'll schedule the orgy later.
We're going to pounce.
Oh, as Fritz does.
Yeah.
On Natalia.
Anyway, So what's interesting is that in the film, the discussion that they had when Sally first comes on to him, she says, he rejects her.
Mhm.
And then she says, like, or do you not sleep with girls?
Yeah.
Or do you not, does she say sleep with, or do you not?
I think
I
you
don't know.
sleep with girls.
Something to that
like
effect, though.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, it's phrased as not with girls, but it's not phrased as with boys, right?
Yeah,
It's phrased
yeah.
as not with girls.
Yes.
And then he's like, I don't. And let me be even more specific. I've slept with 3 women and I was just going through the motions and that's it. But he like never actually says because I sleep with men. He just says
Yeah.
not with
I'm
girls.
a big old F slur. Right. He doesn't say that.
Yeah, he does not say that. And then she's like, great, I understand. And then there's a later scene where he's comforting her and then they end up sleeping together and then they're like in a continual relationship, right?
Mhm.
And then what's also interesting is that we're like midway through the context and I'm just deep in the plot now. So then Max comes into the picture. And what I think is interesting about the way the film does this is like, it feels like they try to not give you any sense of his chemistry with Max in the scenes that are the two of them together. Even though I was like waiting for that because I was like,
Yeah.
but like this guy is gay. So like, of course he's into Max. Why is it not more obvious? But then it feels, okay, the way that I read the throuple situation
Mhm.
is it feels like Max and Sally are like very much in a relationship. They're like publicly and privately in a
Mhm.
relationship with each other. And then that Brian is like there and like wants to be a part of it, but you feel unsure about like how much has that been like consummated versus it's still just kind of a desire and an underlying third part of this.
Mhm.
And they have like scene where they like dance together and stuff that I took as like, here's the lead up to the actual threesome. Adam was
Yes.
so just like taken in by my description of this movie that you also watched.
I've never seen this movie before. What's it called?
I was like, I gotta check this out. Oh my god, this is
Wow,
really
that
interesting.
sounds great.
That scene of the 3 of them dancing is very clearly a natural successor to Camelot.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
Camelot, but everybody just gets to
He's
love each
into
other,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I read that also as like Sally was like, yep, come on in,
Yes,
Brian. I'm
yeah.
into this, yeah. And then it's kind of like the record scratches, they kind of come to their senses, it gets awkward, they stop. But then we have the big scene where she says something about like screwing Max and he says like, I do too. And that's meant to be the like, what?
Mhm.
I'm like confused why the audience was confused and I'm confused why she's confused. Like,
Yeah.
like, did you not, why would you be surprised? I thought we were all on the same page here, Sally.
Well, first of all, we are talking about this so early because we are still talking about the stage adaptation. However, in regards to this, I will say, it's a gag moment, first of all. Great line. I do too. Amazing.
The setup is great.
Setup
is
The
perfect.
way that it's revealed is great.
I think I was just surprised because you obviously don't see any of them do anything. So at least for the audience, I was like surprised that she had like officially cheated on
Brian,
on
because
Brian,
it
and then like even
because
more
it kept
shocking, I was
feeding
surprised
off
that he
of
cheated
like
on her.
Brian just maybe is imagining things, or like it was kind of, I saw it more as like a cuckolding thing of like
It was huge cuckold.
they're trying to perform that they're
Oh.
together, but I don't know if it's real or not. So
I
uh,
didn't think of her as cheating on him at all. I just sort of assumed they were in an open relationship because she talks so often about sleeping with men that I just sort of like made the leap that like
Mm.
she would only be with Brian if she also got to continue to sleep with other men as well.
I always felt like when she was talking about having sex with other men, it was like the previous partner she's had pre-Brian, but since they had like
I guess
officially
so.
gotten together, that
'Cause they even showed that-
there isn't anything that's shown. Obviously, in the film, the only sexual anything is they're like laying in bed sheets during maybe this time. That's like the
Yeah,
only thing that
yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And the hot 3-way dance, steamy. They're getting very close. I thought it was gonna end in a 3-way kiss. Like I was like, wow, we're going there. We're doing it. Okay. I'm gonna
so anyway,
finish.
the original musical.
I'm gonna finish
Oh
the
yeah,
Tony
so let me
Awards.
say, before
Yeah,
you
with
do Tony
regards
Awards
to Cliff,
quickly,
regards to
what's
Cliff.
interesting about that also is that the way that this article was written was really interesting, but they talked about Isherwood and his sexuality, that so he officially came out later in life, but the way that the author of the article phrased it as that Isherwood talked about his bisexuality during his Berlin sojourn, but then became a committed homosexual thereafter. And so I don't know if the article author was trying to say like his sexuality actually changed, or like just that he lived life as a bisexual, like he slept with men and women when in Berlin, and then decided he was just gay. Do you know what I mean? Like it was written in a very weird way.
See, what I read was, I just read the snippet of like they did actually have sex together, Isherwood and Jean, whatever her name is, I keep forgetting it, Jean Ross. And like the story goes is that they were like laying around in bed, and it was like a very hot day or whatever, and she was like, ugh, if only we could have sex, because there's nothing else to do right now. And he was like, you're right, there isn't. So then they just had sex. What
a romantic
good one.
It's gorgeous,
story.
and
One to
that's
tell your children for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just think that what is interesting though is that ambiguity kind of makes sense to me a little bit with the character of Brian/Clifford, of like if Isherwood is kind of in that character, it's not like a really clearly defined, but I can get into the ambiguity of how those things align for the author and the character.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to me, an idea of this show having Cliff be like completely straight, because he doesn't.
That's so wild. Yeah.
That's weird. That seems.
But then
weird.
Max is just like not in the stage show. Is that right?
He's not in the musical. He's in the play, I believe. He's in the I Am a Camera. And so are Fritz and Natalia. They were just like cut for the stage version.
Of the musical.
The musical stage version, because there's the stage version of I Am a Camera and a film of I Am a Camera. Okay, gotcha.
Correct. Yeah, sorry. I did not talk about the film version of I Am a Camera, to be clear. Tony Awards. This was nominated
Back
for
to the pre-show.
So it's nominated for Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical, Best Performance by a Leading Actor in a Musical, Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Musical for Edward Winter, who plays somebody. Probably the Fruit Seller is my guess. I didn't look it up. Best Musical, however, it won Best Musical, Best Original Score. Joel Grey won for the MC. Best Performance by Featured Actress in a Musical for Peg Murray. Best Direction, Best Choreography, Best Scenic Design, Best Costume Design. So congrats to Cabaret. Now let's move on to the movie.
Yeah, because we've been holding out on talking about the movie this entire time.
Right.
So.
Cabaret is directed by Bob Fosse. Its screenplay is by Jay Allen. It's based on all the things we just talked about for the past 45 minutes. It is produced by
Christopher Isherwood was born.
To really understand this, you have to go back to the history of Christianity. So we will be beginning. It's produced by Cy Feuer, Feuer. I don't know how to pronounce that. It stars Liza Minnelli as Sally Bowles, Michael York as Brian Roberts, Helmut Greem as Baron Maximilian von Hoon, Marissa Berenson as Natalia Landauer, Fritz Wepper as Fritz Wendell, and Joel Grey as the MC.
Couple of Fritzes.
Cinematography is by Jeffrey Unsworth. It is edited by David Bretherton. Its music is by Ken Duranab, and additional scoring is by Ralph Burns. Production companies are ABC Pictures and Allied Artists. It's distributed by Allied Artists in the United States. So I really don't know what logo sound I'm going to use for this, but we'll figure it out. Its release date was February 13th, 1972. Its running time is 124 minutes. Its budget was $4.6 million, and its box office, it made $42.8 million.
Wow, tenfold.
Adam, do you put in different sounds based on who produced the movie?
Have you never noticed?
I apologize for not paying attention to our own podcast.
Yeah, right before we start the
movie
go into the discussion, I always play the logo.
Rita was on another level than I was in terms of appreciating your audio genius.
Oh, could you imagine if she had brought it up? You're like, what? What are you talking about?
There's songs in it. We play the songs.
I've never listened to it.
I've never listened to the songs. No.
What's it called? Cabaret. So development, Bob Fosse had directed Sweet Charity, which was unsuccessful, but so he like wasn't gonna get this, but he really wanted to. So producer for like lobbied for him to get the job, which he inevitably did. However, by the time he joined, Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey were already signed on to do it. And Gray always thought that Fosse actually wanted to play the MC himself and was mad that Gray was already like a part of attached to it when he signed
Drama.
on. Like Gray has this weird conspiracy theory that they were going to do open calls and then not find the right fit. So then Bob Fosse was like, well, I just have to play it. So
Very Gene Kelly of.
but he said they had like a very strained relationship on set.
Well, but also speaks to how absolutely perfect Joel Grey is in this role that that Bob Fosse just had to give it to him.
Yeah.
He's so good. He's so good. Okay. So screenwriting went back to Isherwood's original book, keeping the Heiress and Gigolo plotline. It also made the main character bisexual, which we talked about. Mine Hair, Money, and Maybe This Time were all added to the story. Maybe This Time was actually already written by Kander and Ebb for a different thing that they didn't end up using. Which is funny because now it's like the song.
It's the song, but I do kind of feel that like there is a little bit of like, and here's the, at the time, like here's the pop song. It's not that, but it's like that feeling of like, here's the inserted song.
Oh, I don't feel that at all. I think this movie is very good. I mean, because they also used Kander and Ebb completely for everything.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't feel like it
If
does, but I do know what you're talking about.
It like fits that it's all by the same Kander and Ebb, but like in the context of like a cabaret in Berlin in the 30s, it's the least like that.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I love the choice. Sorry, we can't talk about it yet. So smaller roles all went to West Germany actors. Liza asked her father, who we have discussed on this podcast, Vincent Minnelli.
Vincelli,
the director of Meet Me in St. Louis, who to base Sally off of, like looks-wise. And she was like, should I go with like a Marlene Dietrich? And he told her to look up Louise Brooks. So if you click on the Louise Brooks name, there is a little link that'll take you to a photo of a woman who looks exactly like Sally Bowles in Cabaret from 1972.
It took me a minute because there are so many notes for this podcast. Hold on. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that they added for the film is that Liza Minnelli has that weird, like, her hair comes down
the
to a
iconic
point
widow's
thing with
peak. Yeah, the
the
deepest widow's
bangs.
peak. Yeah.
Widow's peak bangs. But otherwise, yeah, pretty much spot on.
It's great. She's very pretty. I guess she was a popular Hollywood starlet in the 30s in Germany at the time. The production, a fun fact, this film was, the interiors were filmed on the same soundstage that Willy Wonka was using. And so Fosse would loudly complain that they were like overrunning their time from the morning. Like he would go on set and be like, well,
The Willy Wonkas are still out there.
Well,
the Oompa Loompas.
They shouldn't have overrun their time.
You know what? He's right.
We gave it too much time.
Do you know what? Bob Fosse was right about everything. I'll stand by
Fosse? No
everything he's ever done.
Jean Ross ended up, so she died in 1973. So she actually apparently, if she didn't see the film, she at least like knew of its existence. She really disliked how she was portrayed as apolitical and anti-Semitic. She had been a communist and a war correspondent in the Spanish Civil War years later. And then her partner, I guess, was Claude Cockburn, who fathered Alexander Cockburn, who was a journalist and who is quoted as having said she was a gentle, cultivated, and beautiful woman, not a bit like the vulgar vamp displayed by Liza Minnelli. I mean, at this point, you're so far removed from who she actually is that I feel like, I don't know.
So the character has a different name. I would never know that that's who it's based on.
Right.
You know, hopefully she can rest easy in her grave knowing that.
However, in a weird circumstance of events, Claude Cockburn's granddaughter is Olivia Wilde. So Nepo babies everywhere.
With. Yeah. Can we go back for a second though to the character being portrayed as apolitical and anti-Semitic? Again, is that a stage show thing? Because I don't know.
I didn't read that take either. I mean, this was from definitely not fact-checked IMDb. So, you know, we're getting fifth-hand information here.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't read anything she does in the film as being anti-Semitic in any way. But I don't know. I don't know how it is in the book or in the like.
Right.
The character of Sally Bowles and other media.
I wonder if there's like a the way she, because really I feel like the only Jewish interaction that she has is with Natalia, but I feel like it's more about like her status and her being like a prim and proper girl and someone that's not in her world of like seedy cabaret. but like not
Yeah.
liking Natalia never read as
I
anti-Semitic.
mean, yeah, she's definitely the apolitical part, and it
Yes.
seems like to me this is really like a musical about a bunch of people ignoring the problem in
Yes,
front of them, and
yes.
Sally is maybe the most glaring example of that, right? And so you could argue that anyone that was like that apolitical in the face of Nazi Germany was being anti-Semitic because of how passive
yeah.
they're being, but like it just seems like I would never like describe the character that way necessarily,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
that's true.
Other actresses who are apparently up for the role of Sally Bowles in this film include Ursula Andress, a person I've never heard of, Julie Andrews, and Margaret Faye Dunaway, Jane Fonda, Jill Ireland, Glenda Jackson, Shirley MacLaine, Barbara Streisand, Brenda Vaccaro, and Natalie Wood.
Interesting.
wow,
An assortment.
Yeah.
a real assortment.
All different types could have played.
Yeah.
And they didn't. It was
And they
Liza.
didn't. I think Liza is still like the right.
You think she was the right cast for this?
I mean, yes, but I feel like that's because I so associate the role with her now. Like,
Yes.
I do see how the role could have gone in a lot of different directions, potentially.
I almost applaud that they like changed so much from the original stage version
So it's like ownable by
because
Liza.
like a British Sally Bowles is a very different person. In my mind.
yeah.
And I also feel like, and I don't know if this is true, for some reason, maybe it's just because all the actresses that seem to play Sally on stage are like older, like 30s, late 30s, early 40s. So like I've always associated Sally with being like kind of like a washed up cabaret
yeah.
performer. Like
Because
she's like
all women in their 30s are washed up. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
discussed earlier.
barren,
Yeah.
it's disgusting. Right. We're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
So I've always thought about Sally that way. So it was like weird. Not weird, I guess, but I was like, oh, Sally being like, I mean, Liza comes off as being like 19 and totally clueless about how anything works in this movie, which is like fun.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't really
interesting.
think she's 19. She doesn't read as like physically super, super young, but
No.
also not older. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 20 because you know she was still very much like emotionally attached to how her father felt. Like
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
very like there's
That
still
scene
something very
feels-
young.
So, yeah, some way that she hasn't fully gotten to like complete adult status.
Yes.
Totally, I understand that. And she is, I think what's interesting about the character is she is in many ways the most naive person in the movie, despite doing the most like adult things,
Mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, interesting. Also, Sally in the novel, or not, gosh darn it.
Too many source materials.
Sally in the short story, I guess then was also compiled to a novel, whatever.
Whatever.
She's supposed to be a bad singer, which is part of the like, there's like a continual
Oh.
debate about like, should Sally be cast/played by somebody? Should be cast as someone who can't sing or played as if she can't sing? So apparently, so she's written as a bad singer who sings without expression, but apparently she's compelling because of, quote, her air of not caring a curse what people thought of her, end quote. So there's supposed to be something interesting about her. But then apparently Jill Hayworth played her in the original Broadway show and was, quote, unfairly criticized for a lack of star power because she was trying to play Sally accurately to that description. And so then there was like all this debate about like, how should we cast this? And then it was like pretty majorly changed when Minnelli got cast in the film to be around her and her star power and to like make her a good cabaret performer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really truly like you have to have the X factor to like make this character work in this world because like there's a reason why people are coming back to her and like how the whole world kind of revolves around her and the people around her keep kind of being strung along.
It does, although what's interesting is there was one part of the article that I read that mentioned something about the MC almost being the main character. And what I think is interesting in the film is that in the very first number, she really is introduced like a background character.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
in
I
the
almost lost her, yeah.
huge litany of people, then all of a sudden it's just like Liza Minnelli's face for a few seconds, the same way that everybody else on stage is a few seconds. And I thought that was a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
At the Oscars, this still has the record for most wins without winning Best Picture. So it won Best Sound, Best Score Adaptation and Original Song Score, Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Supporting Actor for Joel Grey, Best Actress for Liza Minnelli, and Best Director for Bob Fosse. It was also nominated for Best Screenplay and then Best Picture. Bob Fosse, this is the craziest year of his life. Because he had just won Best Director for Pippin. He wins this, And then like a few months later, he wins the Emmy for Best Direction of a variety event or TV special or something like that, because he directed Liza with a Z. So he wins all 3 Best Directing like awards that you can win in the
Wild.
same year. Yeah.
Do you know what movie won Best Picture that year?
I do, but I will be saving that for reviews at the
Ooh, okay. Exciting.
To ask the audience if they're team Cabaret or team that other movie.
You just have to remember that the 70s, like people still talk about the 70s in film because like it's just true. Like Club. Another club. Like they're just every movie is incredible. There's no notes. They're all mostly about men, so that is like
that's
the problem,
better, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that for this
not these abortion movies.
Oh my God.
For this extremely long episode, I'm glad you put a teaser in to get people to try to listen to the list.
You gotta hang out till the end.
Rita, don't fall asleep.
Rita, keep it up.
You couldn't possibly just Google what movie won the Academy Award this year. You gotta stick with us. The only way to
Rita,
learn that
I know you're falling
information.
asleep. Just pause.
Rita, it's okay if you fall asleep. I just need you to keep playing it every night as you're falling asleep until you get to the end. So it'll be a week-long durational experience. Is what
those
we're going
listens
for.
up. We got to get those listens up. All right, let's move on to the film.
And now we'll play the Allied distribution. What is it? Allied Productions. Allied Artists music.
Distribution.
Ally.
So this movie, I'm just going to start with my general thoughts about this film.
Because Adam wrote no notes about the movie.
I wrote no notes. I barely remember it. Yeah, I didn't write. I mean, it's so fresh in my mind that I don't need notes. But in general, I think it's like just a great piece of cinema. I was very impressed at the visual language the film uses in terms of like the camera and how it interacts with the onstage elements. There are a couple shots in the film that I think are like, or sequences that I think are like near perfect put to film. The sequence of Tomorrow Belongs to Me, where everyone is like singing this song that sounds pretty, but they look so mad while they're singing, is like horror. It's a horror movie. And then the end sequence, when you like get the mirror shot of the like crowd and you notice how many more Nazi armbands are in the audience, and then and then it ends. Like, I think that's also a great like button on the film. I really like the direction of this film. I feel like a lot of the time my complaint is the direction of these movie musicals, and this is not one of those times.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think the direction's really strong. Obviously, the choreography is quite good because it's Bob Fosse. Liza Minnelli is great, and it's interesting because it's one of those movies where I don't think I like any of the characters really, but I like the story about them, even though I wouldn't ever want to necessarily interact. I mean, like Brian.
I like Natalia.
Fine. I like Natalia. Brian is fine.
Brian's fine.
But like that's it. Wouldn't really want to hang out with anybody else in the movie. But Joel Grey is so perfect, and and it's so well. I think the musical numbers are really well paced too.
There was a moment during the movie where I felt like there wasn't enough of him, and then I changed that thought because I was like, I think there's just enough of him, because it's like there are even moments where he'll just appear, like just him looking at the audience, which like in the middle of like a random sequence where there's like no music playing, or like maybe it's just underscoring of like that. I was just like, oh, like it's like he's pulling the strings still, or something, like he's still in charge of like what we are experiencing to like get either like the point across or like the themes across.
It's crazy because that works really well on stage, obviously, like the MC idea, and like that he is kind of like the manipulator making everything happen. It's a very Pippin style role.
Yeah. Which I feel like this is always what we question about in movie musicals. Like, we remember the very good adaptations of like, a leading player type in a stage play, and how translates to film.
So it can be done,
Yeah.
but like it works because he's so he doesn't. I love that you never see him off.
Yeah.
You don't see like who is
Who
the
is the MC
just
in real
his
life?
day-to-day
Yeah,
life, like,
yeah.
going shopping at the market. Like I don't need to see that.
Yes.
He just lives in this world, and I think
He's
that's
not
why
even
it
like
works, is 'cause
walk.
you just
He's not
accept
even
it.
like putting stuff around, like getting ready for a show. Like because we see scenes of like Brian and Sally, either working the room or in the crowd. He's not. He is just
Don't
on
we
stage
see
and
him-
backstage. Really,
Yeah, we see him backstage because there's
he
that
like
moment
he
where
like pushes her boobs up or something
yeah,
like that.
and he
like,
makes a face about her and Brian in this way of sort of like, I know this won't work out, kind of.
Yeah.
It's
But
like, a telling.
mocking them in a very childish way. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
This
Yeah.
movie, I think a lot of films and directors, just in general, last night I said this to RJ, I said it like modern filmmakers, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are just a lot of filmmakers who get nervous that they have to like explain verbally what's going on, and like this movie just allows it to be a visual understanding of
absolutely.
what's happening and like doesn't feel the need to
tell.
which is great. I really liked that.
Do you want to play Willkommen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. Fremde, étranger, stranger. Glücklich zu sehen, just vis enchanté. Happy to see you, bleibe reste stay. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome im Cabaret, au Cabaret, to Cabaret.
Yeah, he's just like immediately from the get-go, he is getting an Oscar. Like, I just feel like I would watch this if I lived in 1972. I'd be like, where's my ballot?
I think he may be the best character in all of musical theater.
Truly, yeah.
Yeah.
There's an argument for sure.
Yeah, him, Evan Hansen,
Right. Mhm.
Dear.
Deer. Yeah, those
But
are
I
his
mean,
top
like,
two.
could you, like, name me one musical theater actor that wouldn't want to play the MC?
I can name you a bunch of actors that shouldn't play the MC.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The 98 revival with Natasha Richardson and
Alan Cumming. Ugh.
Two have been alive. I was alive. Two have been in the room
Yeah.
and seeing that. Like, I just,
Yeah.
what, that had to be crazy.
Natasha Richardson, daughter of Vanessa Redgrave. We have an alum connection, just so everybody
Right.
knows. But yes, I wanted to say this, that what I think is interesting also about the MC is that we have two people who are beloved for their portrayal of the MC, which is kind of unheard of
Yeah,
in
totally,
the musical theater
yeah.
realm. Like, we tend to be kind of quite hierarchical about our portrayals.
Yes, like,
and
yeah.
we have very clear, like, this is the person who did it best. So to have two people who are like really well respected and beloved for their portrayal of the same character is really impressive.
Well, and I think what's cool about this role too is it is so ambiguous because it only lives in this on stage presence that like you can kind of do whatever you want with the role. So there's not like the definitive blah blah blah
MC.
is because
Yeah.
you can just interpret it in so many different ways, and the text allows you to do that.
Yeah, I do think the character is probably. Well, I totally think you could put a woman in the role. I think that the character is stronger if it's played by,
Yeah,
I would say, a man or non-binary person or like a trans-masculine person.
yeah,
Because I feel like it is still so much more transgressive to do the gender ambiguous thing when
Yeah.
you're on more the male end of the spectrum, right? But
Mhm.
like, really, anyone could like that. I think is part of what is compelling is that it feels like anyone can imagine themselves in that role as well because the character is like it is the embodiment of ambiguity.
right. If I was gonna say my favorite number in the cabaret that they do as like commentary on the themes of the movie around it is probably, it's not even a number, it's not a song, it's the kick line that turns into like the goose step when they take off the like flowers off their hats and they become like sold, like
They become Nazis.
how
Yeah.
first of all, the production quality at
quality
the small
of Kit
cabaret
Kat
in
Club
Berlin.
is
Yeah.
insane. Painted
costume
drops,
budget.
costumes, like
A full monkey
a full
costume.
monkey costume.
I mean, God bless.
lights.
Getting a little ahead of ourselves with the monkey cut. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have to be its
That'll
own
come
whole
later.
discussion.
Yeah.
What is interesting but okay, actually we'll bring it all in together. What was interesting is that the article I keep referencing that I read for this was trying to make this argument as if, and maybe this was more about the stage show, but as if this show portrays cabarets as like a place where Nazis were participants and like almost as like a, not a pro-Nazi space, but like welcoming to Nazi ideology, but that cabarets were actually like pretty apolitical and that they would like satirize all ideologies. And that to me is like exactly what this film portrays, right? That was my reading, was like they make fun of Nazis and like to their peril that they are probably too dismissive of the Nazis, because we see that paralleled with characters off stage, but that they also have this very anti-Semitic song as well. So they're like, they're not taking sides. They're just like, our job is to like take the piss out of everybody. And I think that this movie is a really good case for like, not everyone is we're not punching up at everybody. You actually shouldn't be totally apolitical and just make fun of everyone equally.
Yeah. We must move on to Liza Minnelli. She's great.
We're pro.
It's so crazy to have been in a world in which Liza Minnelli has been a part of culture for 60, 70 years. And the way she talks, her specific cadence, the way she is as like her energy is so uniquely specific that this version of Sally Bowles, which I feel like is, I said it earlier, but I like how they like differentiated it kind of from the stage musical adaptation. I don't like, it's so uniquely her, and I think it works so well in this film because she's supposed to be effortlessly charming, which is why Brian is so immediately taken in with her. She's also supposed to be on like feels like the edge of a nervous breakdown at all times, which that comes across. But also you're supposed to understand that she's so self-involved and like whatever that she just is like fully I mean, a lot of the characters in this are ignoring the outside world very purposely, and she is the last person who like she never really accepts the reality of the world and
she
just
like
buries herself.
recommits to I'm gonna live in a fantasy world at the end, basically.
To her own detriment. And I think because it's Liza, that comes across so much more. Like I kind of think
there's a bit that she personally kind of believes a part of that too, of like she lives the fantasy. She's very Valentina. Liza Minnelli's the Valentina.
Going home doesn't fit with my fantasy.
It's like a fantasy.
It's interesting because she is, you know, a legitimate star in her own right. Like she's so talented and deserves the role. But then there's also the layer of like the knowledge that she's Judy Garland's daughter, and therefore that like a thing that is a commentary on like let's just play into the fantasy of show business has this like additional layer of all of this context we have of her life as well. That's really interesting. But I would love to see like, and I'm sure it exists, like a compilation of different people playing Sally Bowles, because the character is almost not a blank slate, but like there's parts of the character that feels like you could play it really different ways too, you know?
I think it makes sense then, like, because, you know, like when it was on Broadway, the most recent time that they would get like big Hollywood stars to do it, like Emma Stone did it and Michelle Williams did it. So for me, it was always like what that character must be like something serviceable or something where if you are a big Hollywood star, like there's something that relates. There's something that they can relate to the Sally Bowles character really well that I feel like it's worth kind of getting like a movie star to play the role on Broadway. Like there's something to access there of like living with the fantasies, like like being okay with like kind of always performing almost, you know?
Yeah. And I'm curious, because we know that the stage show is so different plot-wise, how much of this might not be even in the stage show, but the constant comments about all the sex she's having and all the drinking she's doing and how bad she is, basically. And that I love the scene where she says something to Brian like, oh, have I totally shocked you with all of this? And he's like, no. And she's like, oh, I haven't. And she's like genuinely really disappointed
Yeah.
that she hasn't
Mhm.
shocked him. And it's so, that's like the most teenager moment to me.
I mean, it's so, and then it makes sense why she is always her like father issues of like her father never giving her more than 10 words on a telegram. Like it's that feeling of like she's trying to act out.
She's
to
acting
like,
out so that
to be noticed.
But I think that's maybe why I feel like, I don't know if she's 19 because I also read her as like a Arrested Development character, not the show, but like the concept. That,
Lucille
like,
Bluth.
Lucille Bluth, absolutely.
how much could a banana cost? $10?
10 words on a telegram.
But like I would believe that she's 25 because I read her as a character who's stuck in the fact that her relationship with her father is bad in a way that like she doesn't maybe have to be, but it like continues to bother her. Yeah.
I just love that little detail about her character that says literally, I feel like so much about what we're seeing like on screen. Like why
you
Sally
get
was-
the father thing.
Yeah.
And the 10 words, yeah.
Yeah.
I like there's a part of me that wonders if like how I would feel if it was like like someone who can't really sing that well, because I know that Isherwood like had said that he didn't really like this portrayal of Sally because he was like she's too talented, and we know that she's Judy Garland's daughter, so like that's how Sally is. But I also like, I don't know, I kind of like it because then she is so good that she's liked enough in this cabaret that's why she's like, it's not like she's like,
that's what's pulling her in. That's like where her source of confidence is coming from.
Right.
Like there's something that's driving why she is so flighty and like will just make decisions because she knows like she can go back to the cabaret and
because they need her.
have everyone pine for her. And
interesting though. So let me play devil's advocate on that, which is that she is meant to be a character who's like almost delusional in her fantasy of this. And is it actually is it a stronger movie if her insistence on like shutting out all the context of like the political events happening around her and the reality of the baby, which she does phase out to the reality of it eventually, right? But like she for a while lives in this fantasy of like Brian and I are gonna have this baby and it's gonna be amazing and it's gonna solve everything. Is it a better and more bittersweet and compelling, intense ending if she goes back to the cabaret and she's like, no, this is my calling, and you're sitting there thinking, it is not, girl. You should not be doing this.
I don't know if it'd be more compelling. I
think it's I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously there is something like dramatically compelling if like someone making a wrong decision. Because I do think in the movie it does kind of like the decision like all of a sudden happens like, oh, so you're going back, huh? Like it was very that. So I maybe if like that were the case, then there could have there would be more stakes added to that ending. But also knowing that like that's not the real ending. That's just the ending of like that story, you know. So like it's hard.
It's interesting because with Minnelli, there is a part of you that wants to like embrace like life is a cabaret. Yeah, I want to live that life too. And so that is also kind of interesting. Yeah.
It just feels also like going back to like the Bob Fosse, like that. I feel like all of that was included in his in these decisions and what he's seeing. Because it's like if it wasn't Liza, then people wouldn't believe that everything could be better in the cabaret. Like you can just leave all of your troubles. You know,
because it's not like in the plot she's like getting better roles in the like there's no indication that her career is advancing in any way, even though she is just factually good in the cabaret scenes that we see her in.
She's just like allowed to like live basically because she's in this. Yeah.
But I guess I also like that though, that the idea is like her life's not going to improve from here, but maybe this is enough of what she has already. I'm also wondering if it would have been interesting to have, and maybe it's in the very last scene or maybe it's in an earlier scene, have some sort of visual bit where like we see Liza Minnelli performing as Liza Minnelli and then we like cut to here's what's really happening and we understand that like her performances, we're seeing them from her perspective, that she's been really good and compelling.
But then you
and then
listen
we get
and
some
she's not actually.
hint that like actually what the audience is seeing is like a not very good cabaret
Well,
singer.
I had
What
that
was
feeling.
that Meryl Streep movie where she was like the singer who couldn't sing?
Oh yes, the opera. Yes.
You know what
Mamma
I'm
Mia.
I
I did. I said it.
Bad. Because there was that moment like at the end of maybe this time where I was like, are they clapping?
This
There's
is
like barely
this was my
any
favorite.
clapping.
This was my
Yeah.
favorite choice
So I was like,
in this
maybe.
movie. No, that's not true. It's one of my favorite choices of the movie. Is that she's doing this number that is like absolutely powerful. Tear the roof off
Yeah.
the walls. What's the phrase?
Yeah. No,
What's
that's
that?
it. You
Tear
got
the
it
roof
one.
off the
Tear the
walls.
roof
Tear the
off
roof
those
right
walls.
off the
Right off those walls.
And she's performing basically to an empty room. I
Yeah.
think it's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like there's 4 people inside the cabaret watching.
It feels like it's empty or like it's early. Like it was the first number
Mhm.
before people like start coming in like after like 10 or 11.
Or it's like the last number and people have
Yeah.
already started leaving.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That I do kind of wish, yeah, if they did peel that back and you did see either an empty house that could feed into like, okay, there's a delusional thing of like, she's seeing the cabaret for a lot more than what it actually is. Like
Yeah.
it means so much to her when then it's not really there.
Right. Let's listen
Yeah.
to a little bit of Maybe This Time.
Everybody loves a winner, so nobody loved me. Lady peaceful, lady happy, that's what I long to be. Well, all the odds are they're in my favor. Something's bound to begin. It's gotta happen sometime. Maybe this time I'll win. 'Cause everybody, oh, they love a winner, so nobody loves me. Lady peaceful, lady happy, that's what I long to be. Well, all the odds are they're in my favor. Something's bound to begin. It's gotta happen sometime. Maybe this time, I'll
It's interesting how the clap that we're talking about can be a commentary both on is Sally
Chlamydia?
not a
Well,
no, syphilis.
no,
darling.
syphilis,
Oh, that was
girl.
syphilis. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
syphilis.
People die from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's for listeners who haven't watched Cabaret in a while, there's a joke about syphilis in it. So it could be the fact that there's not much clapping for her after this number could be a commentary on Sally not being a very good performer, but could also be a sort of case of foreshadowing that she is wrong to believe that this relationship will be the one that works out, which is cool that it can work in both ways.
Yeah.
I think though that's why I've always, maybe it's just because the song Maybe This Time feels like someone who's seen the world and is like, maybe it's this time. So maybe she can't be that young because
Yeah, it feels the song was clearly like Liza will sing this song for the rest of her life. Like, you know what I mean? Like it feels like a song for Liza now. Like like looking back of like
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, but I also think that you can have a lot of very short relationships.
That's true, yeah.
And we're meant to understand that she is this ultimate romantic at heart, like
Yes.
wants to portray herself
Always
as
finding-
the mine hair girl of like love him and leave him, whatever, man.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think there's an element of that that's true, but like that also underneath all of that, she hopes a little bit each time that it'll turn into
Mhm.
this whole thing. So I think you can be pretty young and already have a maybe this time attitude, depending on how you've lived your life.
Yeah.
I would like to take a little deviation to the B plot,
Yeah.
if we could.
Yes, or as I called it, the cruel intention. It felt very cruel intentions to me of like, who can get the virgin first.
Oh,
but there was
I've never seen Cruel Intentions.
Oh, it's based off of Les Liaisons Dangereuses. You know that the Michelle Pfeiffer movie. Like these two. It's like basically these two step siblings of like taking a bet of like who can woo the virgin first or whatever.
Is it again a very bisexual story? It sounds like.
Yes, it's Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe giving you bi energy for sure.
Awesome.
No, she's never seen.
I gotta watch it.
I was way too young to watch it, and you see Ryan Phillippe's full ass, and
it's so good.
changed my life.
It's such a good movie.
You yelling full ass into a microphone isn't like quite selling it to me, and maybe the way you're
Yeah.
imagining it would. But
His whole blue moon right on screen.
Rita fully just jolted awake, like, well, now I'm up, because RJ just shouted full ass.
So I want to talk about the B plot.
Yes.
Although it doesn't, like I said, have songs, which I think after we talk about the B plot, we should also talk about how songs function in this movie.
Yes, yeah.
But the one thing that I don't like about the film as a film is that Fritz's story is very compelling. The idea that
Mhm.
we don't find out until very late in his plot that he is in fact Jewish and that he lied about that, and that now he's in this predicament of the only reason this woman won't marry me is because I'm not Jewish. But she also says that the way I've won her over is by being so honest.
Mhm.
And so now if I tell her that, she'll reject me. And there's also this real cost to me revealing myself to be Jewish. And so if she rejects me and my friends all reject me, what am I going to do? But the way it resolves is just there's this shot of him banging on a door. And then they open the door and he says, I'm a Jew, I think.
Yes,
and then
he's like, I'm a Jew. And then church bells.
Cut to her in a veil.
Yeah.
We're at a wedding. There's just like none of the tension of that is actually resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's resolved. Like she
They
marries
just
him, this
quickly do
happens,
it, yeah.
But we never see the scene of her coming to terms with the fact that he lied, having any feelings about it. And isn't it like that wedding and then those characters are done for the movie?
Yeah, that's pretty much done.
Well, first of all, we go away from them for the
To
entire
introduce
Baron
this-
von Wüsten house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is sort of
Introduce
like
thruple, yeah.
Yeah. There's like English lessons part, and then there's the thruple for like a good middle chunk, and then
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah. Remember the kids from the English lesson? We're back to those crazy kids.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it is a very compelling story, especially when you think it's one thing because you think it's just that they can't be together because she's a Jew and he's Christian, as they say in the film. But when you realize that he's actually also Jewish, it's very compelling. I do kind of wish they had kept this, but also they had still felt like they could keep the Frau Schneider, Herr Schultz storyline as well. Although I guess they're kind of doing similar things already.
Yeah.
But I just feel like because from what I remember from the community theater production, it's like an older couple,
Mhm.
and they're very like sweet. It's very like romantic. It's actually the like only true romance of the story, and then they don't actually end up together. So that's another way that you can like see that everything is breaking down around them. I kind of just wish they had kept it because
That would be
I
more
wish there had
compelling
been
than...
I wish there had been a different. I was very tired that everyone was the same age by like the end of the
Yeah,
film.
because this take definitely felt a little bit more like comic relief, even though, like you said, there is some real strong tension, especially like with Natalia too. Like she,
Gorgeous.
she's beautiful, and she does kind of like serve as a comic relief because she's so removed from the world that everyone else is in.
The tea party sequence.
The tea party
Yes,
is very
it's
funny.
very funny. Yeah,
When Liza Minnelli can't remember the
the German
word
for screwing.
screw. And then she, I don't remember what it is, but she says it, and the reaction of just, oh. and then Brian is like, of course, that's the only German word you know how to pronounce exactly correctly.
Yes, yeah. But like, and then like, you know, like later she is like basically a victim also of like being terrorized because she is Jewish.
First of all, her dog is murdered.
Yeah, not basically a victim. Very much hysterical.
very much, yeah. So it's like, and then like
and that is
that's not like really
before
the
the
last.
wedding.
Yes, like that's the last time we really see her outside of being being married.
Yeah.
So there's like a sense of like they're pulling a lot of what else is happening with these like brief moments that we're getting them.
Can I also just say, there's a moment in the movie, and I don't remember where they are, but there's someone that's talking about how there's like a cabal of Jewish like bank people who like run the world.
Yes,
and
it's
I
in
was
the-
like,
it's in the
I
boarding-
can't believe we're still doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, 2022.
It was in the boarding house, like just the other.
Oh, yeah, like
I
in the
think like
parlor.
meant to be like other people that just live in the boarding house and just like
Yeah, which was a very effective scene in terms of showing you just how pervasive and everyday that anti-Semitism was.
Yeah.
And to your point, in some ways remains, although less like on the surface, like you would not just be in like a random public conversation and just
you would have to
talking
be in
about
the
that now.
dark web. Yeah.
You understand, people understand that that's a controversial opinion to have at the very least, but yeah, it is wild how persistent anti-Semitism has remained,
Yes.
and that people still
It's horrifying. Well, I feel like if we're talking about anti-Semitism,
let's get into it.
I think we should talk about Tomorrow Belongs to Me. So it's in the thruple third of the film.
Yes.
Mhm.
The entire time I was like, Max is a Nazi, right? Like that was kind of like what I was expecting.
Oh, interesting.
Because there was something obviously like when
He's blonde.
he's very blonde.
Mhm.
His upper
No,
lip
that's
is the
the
mustache.
most important
has
thing, yeah.
he just has a lower lip. His upper lip is the mustache. Like there's no like it's so
There's no
thin
top lip, it's
and
just a
low.
mustache. Yeah,
What
but
a weird detail to feel relates to his political
it was just a
alignment.
weird mustache. But the way he
Mustache
enters,
Nazi.
I must ask you a question.
I must ask you guys. The way he's introduced is like she basically is running her laundry and like having a hard time speaking German with the laundromat woman. Laundress, and he kind of swoops in very charming but also very like, okay, this man has money. There's like a sense of eliteness and power to him that the entire time I was like, okay, yes, she's obviously like smitten by the power and the confidence that I was like, kind of Nazi. Like, so I thought that was going to be the gag and like the big moral, like ambiguous thing of like, is she okay with all of what he's doing and like all these great times and these dates and going to this weekend out with him and giving all the lavishes to her when he may be a Nazi.
Such a long list of things.
know.
It
was a lot. He gave her a lot.
I feel like I did not see him as ending up being a Nazi. I mean, I definitely thought there was part of me that was like, this could end up that way, but he more felt like an Uncle Max, where he was just opportunistic of whatever the moment held. Uncle Max, obviously referring to The Sound of Music.
The greatest movie musical of all
Greatest
time.
movie musical of all time, as I've said on this podcast. As Rita agrees with. My surrogate mother. Yeah, he felt more Uncle Max to me, but the moment in the film, unless you had something to say about the Baron.
That was really just my impression,
Oh,
so
I
that's what
just-
I thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
I
it was going.
like that the movie makes him, rather than a Nazi, someone who is dismissive of the Nazis, because I
Yes.
think that is the more important thing to know about this
Yeah.
time period, is that probably that's what a lot of people thought was just, okay, this is some blip of like these guys that are into this
These
weird
kids.
thing.
Yeah, like they very much
We'll move
call it like
past
young
it.
kids.
Yeah. So I'm glad that was
It'll
that ended up
peter
being the
out.
perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They go him, and it's specifically just the Baron and Brian.
She like drinks too much, so she's
Right.
exhausted.
Yeah, something that she only does once in the movie is drink. And they go out to like lunch in the country, and they're at this like beer garden, basically. It's very German.
Very German.
And a guy just starts singing a song called Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and then everyone joins in. There's like a few stragglers who don't join in, but literally everybody stands up and joins in. And they end up leaving while it's being sung. And it's very ominous. It is incredibly unsettling. And it's it's like the thing that I think people who don't like movie musicals just always feel like movie musicals are, which is like, this isn't natural, this isn't right, but like it's meant to feel that this isn't natural, this isn't right. I'll play a little bit of it right now.
Tomorrow belongs to me. The babe in his cradle is closing his eyes. The blossom embraces the bee. But soon says a whisper, arise, arise. Tomorrow belongs to me. Oh, Father and Fatherland, show us a sign. Your children are
I mean, they did a very... So Kander and Ebb wrote the song. It's an original song. It is not actually a piece of Nazi propaganda. They have been accused of this because people thought like it was an actual Nazi song that they just put into the musical. It is not. First of all, there wouldn't be a Nazi song in English, so let's start there. But
you could translate it, though, to be fair. But yeah.
True. But they wrote it, and then the people were like, there was like a criticism, I guess, of Cabaret that like because of this, it like is partially propaganda to like join Nazi movements. And I have to reiterate that Kander and Ebb are Jewish, or were Jewish, I should say. And no, it's not. And you are supposed. It is so purposefully like Brechtian and supposed to be unsettling. Like it's even in the original piece that way. Like it's very clear that you're not supposed to enjoy what's going on here.
I do think that is clear, but it is making me think about, there's a Lindsay Ellis video that I will link in the show notes that's really good about the producers and the way that the producers makes Nazis into this punchline. And that was seen as like a controversial thing of like, should Mel Brooks be doing that? Again, also Jewish. And she makes this point about, there's a movie called, I have no idea. I'm coming up entirely blank, but it's an Edward Norton movie where he's like a modern day skinhead, like a white nationalist.
Oh, American X something.
Yeah. Anyway, so even though that movie is very much anti-Nazis, it's like it's a movie about how he thinks this and then learns that he's wrong and like shouldn't have this opinion, right? That skinheads have still adopted some of the imagery of that movie because it makes it look really cool. The part where he is a Nazi.
American History X.
American History X. Yeah. And she says, do you know what they haven't done that to? The producers. Because there's nothing in the producers that you could lift just that image and say, isn't there something kind of compelling about this? And so while I think that the intentions of this are like entirely clear, and I also don't know that we should hold art to the standard of like nothing in it could ever be misinterpreted in a bad way and like take it out of context in a way that's not what you intended. I do wonder if that's where that criticism is coming from of this is like kind of a rousing piece of music if it were done entirely in the abstract and so like could be misconstrued.
Can I talk about things being misconstrued and to which you can't even...
I'm actually not interested in your opinion.
So have you ever wondered where have I talked about this on the podcast?
I don't know. You have to tell what it is.
Have you ever wondered where the term Proud Boys comes from?
Oh, you have not talked to it with us. You've talked to
were they a little bit fruity?
No.
Okay.
It's so much crazier.
Okay.
So there is a song written for the original film, Aladdin, by the Walt Disney Company, in which Aladdin was going to sing a song called Proud of Your Boy. And it is in the stage musical. They reused it for the stage musical. But it is a song basically to his mom character that ended up being cut from the film about how he wanted her to be proud of him and blah, 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 blah. And like the alt-right men's activists somehow latched onto this song. And because Disney cut the song, took it as, this is literally real. I have to, Molly looks like I'm making it up. I swear to God, I'm not. They used it because they were like, because Disney cut the song, it's like about men like being, they're trying to say men shouldn't be proud of themselves.
Yeah. This all seems consistent with what I understand of that movement. So
yeah, there's a Snopes article. Did the Proud Boys name come from an Aladdin song? Rating, correct attribution.
Thanks, Snopes.
So, just like there's no way to ever protect or whatever
And there
your stuff from being misconstrued.
There is also something weird of like, these are how these Jewish creative minds are kind of interpreting what they've gone through.
Generational trauma.
Generational trauma. And like very weird to criticize, like, should they be doing that? Should they be talking about it in that way? Who are they to like put them in a light? I'm like, but it's an experience that they're all, you know what I mean? Like there's something weird about kind of criticizing.
I mean, we don't know who the people that are doing the criticism. They could also be Jewish, is all I'm saying. So like,
yeah.
I don't want to dismiss the critics by saying like, well, but they're Jewish, so like no one can ever have questions about the
Yes.
art that they made, because those people could also be coming from real lived experience as well.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't hold the opinion that like, because someone could take this song entirely out of context, but also kind of in context enough to have the Nazi part, but take out all of the ways that it's framed in the musical.
Yeah.
That seems like an unfair framing. And certainly it seems ridiculous to say like, were they secretly trying to just do Nazi propaganda? Like,
Yeah.
gosh, that was a lot of effort to obscure their intention if that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, imagine all the books they had to read to write this to
They had to
screenplay.
read so many adaptations of Sally Bowles. Just to speak in one Nazi song, you could just do Nazi stuff. You shouldn't, but you can.
You could have just done that. So I don't think it's that.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's that.
I think this sequence though is so effective, and like I think this will really help us get into the diegetic conversation that I know
Yes.
Molly is diegeting to have. But every song in this movie is a real song being sung in a moment with people around, and they are reacting to the song as a actual song.
It's what Annie 2014 wanted.
But this is the only song that does not happen on the stage at the Kit Kat Club. And I
But
just
just
think
as performing, I guess, like it's still a
yeah. Well, so in the original, it's in the original stage
Yes.
musical.
of a musical. Okay.
It's one of the waiters in the Kit Kat Club just starts singing out of nowhere.
Ooh.
And then the club joins in. Like they all are like,
And it sounds like too the original staging was very sort of like immersive before we had immersive
Yeah.
theater kind of thing, so that the audience was meant to feel like they were kind of in the club. So I'm sure it felt very unsettling to have this
Yeah.
person who's like almost in the audience space, I'm assuming, that starts to
Yeah.
sing the song too. So that's really interesting.
yeah. But also it's a good song. And that's the craziest part.
Well, it goes to my point that I made in Greatest Showman about the like, what do these people even want? Like, what are the villains doing here? That like you should
Mhm.
make your villains compelling, because the point
Right.
of making art about why not to do bad things is that you have to get people to understand what is compelling about the evil thing, so that they see themselves as someone who
is
could have
not
that
yeah.
that evil opinion and has to choose to safeguard
Yeah.
against it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting about the music, if I can go to like the bigger point about this and the
Mhm.
diegetic nature,
Mhm.
is that it's not Sister Act, where that's just like a movie that has music in it.
Mhm.
Because the songs in Sister Act exist just as songs that the characters are singing. And
Right.
it tells you something about the characters because they're like about Christianity and they're nuns, right? But like the songs don't comment in any way on the action of the film.
Mhm.
But it's also not an integrated musical where any of the plot is moved forward
where
through
there's
the
multiple
songs.
races in the film. An integrated musical.
You know, that's not what integrated musical means. The plot doesn't move forward. No decisions are made in the course of the song. You don't even really learn more about the characters. You don't hear like the inner thoughts of the characters
Yeah,
necessarily. I
right.
guess maybe in Money, which we didn't put on the list, but we could
Yeah.
where like, so sometimes the song Money Makes the World Go Round does a little bit like you see Liza Minnelli get impressed by the Baron's money, and then
Mhm.
it cuts to her and the MC singing a song about it. So it's almost like this, here's the base instinct that like
Mhm.
this is playing into. But it does like work it works reflexively instead of moving the plot forward. It
Mhm.
like makes you think about the thing that you just saw, which is kind of Brechtian, I'm now thinking.
Hmm.
Mhm.
German. Interesting.
German. Yeah, I had made that. I had made a
Bergtort?
I'd made a comment of like it does feel like it's like you do it's like you read the chapter, you watch the chapter happen, and then a song plays to kind of summarize
to cement what it was
cement what you were supposed to get out of that chapter.
Yes.
That I was like, wow, maybe this is how you write a musical. Like this is just pick a play and just do a song at the end of the scene.
Yeah, it's interesting
you know?
that I can't think of any other musicals that quite function in the same way.
Chicago is the closest, I think. But it's still not as specifically thematic. But it is more the songs are about themes as opposed to being like we're advancing plot. If that makes sense.
Are you in Chicago?
Mhm.
Yeah. I just think this is it does such a great job of like
It's a very specific way of writing a musical, though. It cannot work
Yes.
for everything.
Oh, for sure.
yeah. It just it kind of blends the like what I love about a lot of these like 70s kind of like slice of life movies where it's just kind of showing you people live their life. But there's like an undercurrent theme that you're supposed to pull out of this of like a specific character or what they're going through. And like, you know, yeah, just like the highlighting of the music. It's just really great. I just love the pacing of it, and there's just something about like the slice of lifeness of like you're just watching these people, but there's something so deep that's happening as they're just trying to
Right.
You know,
There
do
are
the daily
obviously
life.
plots. It's not a true slice of life.
Yeah.
Like the most recent one I watched was like the Florida Project from 2018. That's like a true slice of life film. But it does, I think, in the way that it was saying that the book is like a series of sketches, basically,
Mhm.
of detailing things that happened in Berlin. I think the movie kind of interacts the same way, where it's like, okay, the fact that we can even clearly define sections of this film by being like, okay, this is this part of the film, this is
Yeah.
the throuple, this is where we go to do this, and this is the abortion sequence. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Should we talk about the monkey scene?
We got to talk about the monkey.
Unfortunately, not to talk about the monkey scene. Can I? I'm trying to think if I should say this first or after.
Let's play the song first, as an example of like one of those songs that kind of illuminate a theme.
So I'm probably going to play the end
Yeah.
for when we get the reveal. But to set it up, because this is not a visual medium, the MC is dancing with a performer who is entirely in a monkey costume
As a bride.
as like his girlfriend,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And I truly love, this is an off note, but I truly love that when she eats the banana, she has to like open the mask
Yeah.
to like close.
And then like chew a little
yeah, it's great. There's no notes. I love this. But yeah, here's a bit of, what is it called? If you could see her.
Oh, I understand your objection. I grant you the problem's not small. But if you could see her through my eyes.
She wouldn't look Jewish at all.
One thing that I thought was interesting was in the article I read, he said that that Fosse had Grace speak the last line of she wouldn't look Jewish at all so that it could be cut without ruining the soundtrack. But like when I then watched it, I was like, well, you couldn't just like stop the song before that line. Like it's an unfinished line.
bit.
So you would probably have to cut the whole verse. So then like what's the point of having him speak it? And there wasn't like a citation right after that comment where I could go look up the source of that idea. But I thought it was interesting that basically what he was saying was they were worried when making the film of, even though this is important for understanding the whole plot of Cabaret and the idea that like, hey, anti-Semitism was also part of what was happening in the Cabaret, they were so worried about they're just doing anti-Semitism in the film. So like this to me is more uncomfortable in some ways than the Tomorrow Belongs to Me sequence.
So I read something similar in my research, but I read that they had originally, for the film, they changed the line. So this might have been where the wires got crossed. I read that the line was changed to she wouldn't look Jewish at all, Okay, she wouldn't be Miskite at all. So here's the line. Here's what I'm reading. Additionally, if you could see her performed by the MC, originally concluded with the line, she wouldn't be Miskite at all on stage. The film changes this to, she wouldn't look Jewish at all, a return to Ebb's original lyrics.
Right. So it started out with the line, wouldn't look Jewish at all. But then Prince was worried that that was going to be too offensive. So Ebb put in the new line of Miskite, which is a Yiddish word for an ugly or funny looking person.
Right.
That
Which
remains...
there's a song in the original stage musical called Miskite, which is like Herr Schultz sings, explaining like what Miskite is and how people who do any kind of lovely things can't be Miskite, even if they like are unattractive. As long as you bring loveliness to the world, you're okay.
And this article also says that song also functions to like kind of out Schultz as Jewish as well, so it like serves that function as well in the stage show. But apparently also that Gray would occasionally reassert the original line during the Broadway run with the excuse that it just slipped out. So it didn't formally return until Fosse's film. But then it says, even then, still worried about possible censorship, and to be on the safe side, Fosse had the MC speak the line so that it could be removed if necessary without disturbing the soundtrack. The point is that, I guess they must mean so that then they could sub in Joel Grey saying a different thing easier than you could if there's also scoring underneath, because you couldn't just take out the last line, or it would be like hauntingly disturbing that he just doesn't finish the last, because there's like a rhyme that you're expecting there, right?
That's very Brechtian.
Now that's Brechtian, baby.
Now that's Brecht, baby.
But I think it's important that it's in there, I guess is my point. And I think that the film is like treating its audience as smart enough that I don't know that there would be a lot of people who could misinterpret what's going on and what the intention is of including this number.
Yeah, I think this song is so... I get like really emotional about this song. I remember the first time I saw it, I like started crying during it, and it's because it's so sweet, and then when you realize at the end like what it's actually saying, like it's obviously funny. Okay, so it's funny on the surface because it's a guy dancing with a monkey, a person dressed as a monkey in a very elaborate costume. So that's comedy, and that's comedy. But then B, you have the like actual melody and lyrics being like earnest, sweet, like saccharine almost. And then when you have the realization, which in the film is like coinciding with the end of the Fritz and Natalia sequence, I think it's like I think it works. I think it just works. Like it's so well thought out and constructed, like beat for beat in the film.
I think it was the dog, right? It was the the lead into the song was Fritz chasing after her car. And then it's the song, and then during the song is when they're showing.
Oh,
is it intercut with the song?
The Hitler, the Hitler Youth, like breaking in her
because
her house.
They do that intercutting a couple times, because the earlier scene where they make fun of the Nazis, we're getting that interspliced with people beating up.
Yes, Nazis beating up someone that like kicked them out. I don't know if he's supposed to be,
for some reason in my head, he's like the maitre d' of the club, but I don't know why I think that.
I think it was just like a patron.
I thought it was just like a patron.
Yeah, okay. So somebody outside the club, though, that's getting beat up. And so you're supposed to understand, that to me is very clear of like, they're making fun of these guys, but they're not acknowledging like, no, they're doing real hard now, actively, like as we speak.
Yes.
You shouldn't just be laughing them off. And then in this scene, we get the like, oh, you making these jokes is like contributing to this hatred that's harming people as well.
I will say, I also think this movie is like smart in that it actually shows the violence happening. Like it's not just like whispered about. This is what I'm going back saying about show versus tell.
Yeah,
is like they could have referred to a body they drove by on the street with like blood pouring out of it, and like whatever, and you don't see it. But the fact that they're like having this asinine conversation about traveling to Africa, and then they drive by that like covered up body with like a pool of blood pouring into like the gutters, was like a very stark contrast. And I think thematically this movie just like beats you over the head with the idea of like, you are not supposed to ignore the things actually happening.
Yes, and see that the characters are actively avoiding
And that they are
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a really hard question in art of like how much of the actual horrible thing do you show? How much
Right.
violence do you show? And I think specifically with the Holocaust, the
Yeah.
scale of the violence is so vast that like how do we ever understand it? And then
Sure.
how do you like not re-traumatize people and
Mhm.
and that sort of thing? And I'm thinking about I recently watched the movie The Gray Zone, which is like a, I guess not very well known Holocaust film, but I watched this interview that a YouTuber I like did with a guy whose like specialty is Holocaust cinema, and he says it was like the best. He thinks it's the best Holocaust movie ever made. So then I went and watched it, and that movie is about the people who worked the Jewish men who worked at the crematoriums, which was a real thing that happened, and a lot of it is like not the actual violence, but just the death, and like they're incinerating bodies, and there are scenes where people are just like covered in dust, and you just like know it's like human remains, right? And so it's like that movie finds a way to like, it's so heavy in death, but without actual violence, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a really interesting question. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think they went wrong with this, but I think this is where I'm like, I would love to hear the opinion of like several different Jewish people about it, right? Because I wouldn't want to find a Jewish person and be like, is it right or wrong? But like, I would love to hear if there are different perspectives, kind of the way that like with West Side Story, I linked that article that was like an interview with like 6 Latinx people about whether we should keep doing West Side Story. Like I kind of want that, but like on the
Cabaret.
this scene in Cabaret.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that in the Mendes revival, the 1993 that I referenced earlier, where Clifford Bryan becomes a confirmed bisexual, is that also apparently at the end of that production, the MC removed his attire to be wearing like prison garb and had both a pink triangle for being gay as well as like a Star of David. So then I don't know if that's meant to explicitly try to cast the MC as Jewish himself, or just to like to put in the category of like there were all these different people who were killed in the Holocaust, right? I don't know if it's like if the MC is meant to be the MC or if he's meant to be more of an embodiment of like an idea at that moment, because obviously we didn't see it. But I thought that was also really interesting. And apparently there were prisoners in the camps that did some cabaret style shows. And so, you know, an acknowledgement of that real interesting history.
So then at the end, you have truly cementing her decision. You have Sally singing Cabaret, and like this is post the abortion.
She goes through the abortion.
Brian is
leaves
basically going back to England,
for
and
some time to
she
get married.
has effectively decided that she is going to just continue to ignore everything going on. And I also think there's like an interesting question of like, should you just flee? Like, I think even to some extent, like, I think sometimes about how there are many, not the same, to be clear, what I'm about to say. I'm not paralleling these, but some people who are progressive activists in like red states will be like, people keep leaving to go move to blue cities, and that's why the red states continue to stay red, because nobody's like trying to do the work of like actually making the red states like purple or whatever. So I mean, I guess there's that like question of like, is it, obviously safety is very important, but like if everybody leaves and then but then the people who don't have the means to leave are like stuck with now a wider majority of people who want to do them harm. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Am I doing sound nuts? Okay.
No, it does. I wanted to say, speaking of, is that a good parallel to talk about American politics? I have one more piece of information about the development of this musical. So Prince, Hal Prince said that his like big contribution to the development process is that he wanted to highlight, quote, the parallel between the spiritual bankruptcy in Germany in the 1920s and our country in the 1960s, speaking specifically of the hostile white response to integration. And so if you'll notice that it's called the Kit Kat Club.
Oh,
that is a holdover from an earlier iteration of the show that was very much paralleling the civil rights movement in the 1960s and Weimar Germany. So apparently on the first day of rehearsal, he brought in this photo of blonde teenagers who were wearing religious medals, and they were snarling at the camera, and he asked the cast to say what the time and place was of the photo. Because it seems like you would say Germany 1920s, and then revealed it was a group of students in Chicago who were fighting the integration of a school there, and considered ending the show with a film of the March on Selma and the Little Rock riots, but then decided actually that was a terrible idea. So then they really walked back that idea, but there was a version of the show at some point that was very much like about 1960s America.
Make the connection, Fulbrecht. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that was a good choice to not go that hard into it.
But am I imagining that they did show some, like, what's going on in at Germany at the time at the end of Cabaret, or no? Like, am I imagining that? Or
in the movie?
Were they showing, like, scenes of what is going on outside in the city, outside of the Cabaret during the last song, or no? They
kept it pretty. Song?
Yeah, they kept it just tight on him, right?
On her?
Hit her and then to him closing up.
Abiento.
Yeah.
Oh, the MC. Okay. Yeah, I don't think there. We talked about all the splicing in the more obviously political songs, but I don't think so. I think that we're just like, okay, we're ending on the fantasy. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely felt like it was like ripe for that to happen. Like you could easily. So I do. See
that's
like
why I think the end shot of just the amount of people who are Nazis now in the club is like such a good. Yeah. I think it really points it home without being like, it does so much work by being so simple.
Mm-hmm. We've had enough context, I mean, just in life to know what a swastika is, but also like in the film to understand what that means without needing more cutting and like newsreel. Like we don't need that stuff. Yeah. But I also just think that like they are not two things that are really in parallel, like the Holocaust and civil rights movement and the treatment of Black people in America since 1619. But like, so like, I just think I'm glad that it wasn't. I think Americans can be a little. This is really like our problems about everything. Yeah. Right. And I'm glad that they were like, no, let's keep it to like the actual experience of Germany at this time. Yeah.
It's that idea of like, let's have the audience do the work, because like you said, like there's a lot of trust that
you're still able to like pull your own understanding of like xenophobia, like race, just like otherism basically from this, and extrapolate that it's bad.
Yeah. Without having it.
Period.
Yeah.
Should we listen to a little bit of Life is a Cabaret, or just Cabaret?
Or just Cabaret.
Or just Cabaret as it's actually called.
Take it away, Liz.
What good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, the book, and the broom. It's time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Come taste the wine.
Well, I'm going to say my MVP for this movie is, drumroll please, it's Bob Fosse.
I was about to say you're going to say Bob Fosse.
He was
I could pick one of three people though.
He was yes, like
he was mean to Gwen Verdon or whatever, right? But like he just was a run-of-the-mill jerk. He wasn't like a particular bigot or anything, right?
I didn't watch Fosse Verdon, so I don't know.
I didn't either.
I heard it's great.
It's great. I don't like watching show busy things though. Yeah, Bob Fosse was a genius.
Yeah. RJ, MVP?
I will give it to Liza, okay? I will do it.
Because you know who Molly's going to give it to.
Because you know I'm picking Joel Grey.
So I will pick Liza because, that undeniable star quality that I think really sold Sally Bowles as not only a character in the world for people to revolve around her, but for the audience too, to like affix to, keep watching her, keep really rooting for her, even though you know that she's gonna make questionable decisions.
Molly, thoughts
Molly,
on Joe?
yeah.
It's Joel Grey. I've said
It's
it.
Joel
He's
Grey.
perfect. He plays this ambiguous character with this perfect mix of like trickster spirit, and he feels like wise and old, but also like young and mischievous and playful and sexually ambiguous and compelling and welcoming. You don't feel excluded, like he's too
Mhm.
cool because of how ambiguous the character is. It's just perfect.
Would you want to see a Spielberg-esque new version of this movie, like what he did with West Side? So that mean it could mean anything. It could mean it could be bad, or it could mean it would be good.
It's hard for me because I famously do not like the original West Side, and so I was so down for the revival
It fixed.
that
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I don't have the same feeling with Cabaret. Like, I don't know what I would want to see fixed. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't do a good additional version of it, but I don't know what I would want out of a remake.
I would want
want to see Alan Cumming do it on a movie. That's what I
would
want
want the Fraulein Schneider
Fruit seller.
Herr Schultz storyline back.
Yeah.
And probably more songs. I think this version is perfect the way it is, but I also think
it's a perfect
it is not
70s
the
movie.
definitive Cabaret, if that makes sense. I mean, it
That's
is
true.
because it's the only
It's
Cabaret
the
film.
definitive.
But
Yeah, it is the definitive version of this version of Cabaret.
yeah.
But there's so many iterations of Cabaret that we could put a different one on film and it
Right.
would just be a new thing.
I mean,
like that idea.
literally the fact that Wikipedia has an entire section of just all the updates that every revival from the West End and Broadway have ever done with like all the changes they've made. Like, this is talk about a piece that is like still evolving as time goes on. Like they're yeah. It's fluid in that way. Much like Cliff. It's fluid.
Much like Cliff, our bisexual bro.
Okay, so I have gotten some critics' reviews. This film does have a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is certified fresh. This is from Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Sally is brought magnificently to the screen in an in an Oscar-winning performance by Liza Minnelli, who plays her as a girl who's brought what the cabaret is selling. To her, the point is to laugh and sing and live forever in the moment, to refuse to take things seriously, even Nazism, and to relate with people only up to a certain point. She's capable of warmth and emotion, but a lot of it is theatrical, and when the chips are down, she's as decadent as the divinely decadent dark fingernail polish she flaunts. Which, shout out to the green fingernail polish.
Green fingernails.
Liza Minnelli plays Sally Bowles so well and fully that it doesn't matter how well she sings and dances, if you see what I mean. In several musical numbers, including the stunning finale Cabaret number, Liza demonstrates unmistakably that she's one of the great musical performers of our time. But the heartlessness and nihilism of the character is still there all the time, even while we're being supremely entertained. This next one is from Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian. He says, this viscerally powerful, deliriously inspired musical stands the test of time and then some. Bob Fosse's classic 1972 movie about a decadent cabaret in Weimar, Berlin gave us one of Hollywood's great female leads, gorgeous, vulnerable star turned Sally Bowles, a role in which Liza Minnelli gives the performance of a lifetime. Fosse unleashes some show-stoppingly sexy dance sequences for Minnelli and also for MC Joel Grey, and cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth lights and frames everything with genius. And the songs, every one of them is pure gold. Willkommen, bienvenue, Money Money, and of course the chillingly authentic sounding Nazi pastiche ditty, Tomorrow Belongs to Me, quite superb. And finally, Jamie Russell of BBC says, contrasting the perverse stage show with the terror engulfing the streets, Fosse turns Cabaret into a dark yet gaudy snapshot of an era of the relentless pursuit of pleasure. As the sexy but none too bright singer Minnelli in bowler hat and stockings dominates the stage, squeezing Michael York's shy gay Englishman out of the frame, and only meeting her match in Joel Grey's overblown and completely unforgettable master of ceremonies. The songs all take place on the stage so as not to disturb the sexual shenanigans between Minnelli, York, and Helmut Grimm's bisexual, and include Money Money, Mine Hair, and of course Cabaret. All are guaranteed to leave Sally Bowles' words ringing in your ears as the credits roll. Divine decadence, darling.
Yep, I agree with all of it.
No notes.
Couldn't find any negative reviews?
There was one, but it didn't open the full thing.
Okay.
I also, when I go to Rotten Tomatoes, I only use the top critics. I don't use the general critics page because those are just like random blogger
Oh, okay.
gave a negative review.
this movie has a woman in it, so I don't like it.
But I think it was the Time review that was the negative one.
Oh.
But it didn't. It 404 errored out when I clicked on it. So, the people. Here's what they're saying. Ely gave it 4 stars and says, "Who wants to join my new club? It's called BWPN, which stands for Bisexuals Who Punch Nazis, and its formation is in honor of Mr. Brian Roberts, my hero."
Amazing.
This is from Movie Enjoyer. It's 4 stars. Sally Bowles smiling with tears in her eyes after getting an abortion. Ah, that's herstory.
Oh my God.
And here's your answer from Tony, 5 stars. I'm braver than the Marines for admitting that I think this should have won Best Picture over The Godfather.
Wow.
There's your answer.
I've never seen The Godfather, so I can't speak on that question.
It is really an incredible film. And
okay.
the sequel is crazy better.
No
Like,
one's
it's-
ever recommended it to me before, so I guess now I'll finally watch it because
Yeah, it's not
So
really
weird.
well
It's
known.
a hidden gem, I think.
Marlon Brando.
Okay.
You got to watch it on Tubi.
Fat Brando.
It's so hard to watch, you know.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to play a game of Pancake or Waffles, which is
What
an
is this?
excellent game taught to me by my friend Holly, who just moved away this past week. So,
Oh.
in honor of Holly, Pancakes or Waffles is a game usually played in a much less structured way where you start with something very small like pancakes or waffles and you have to pick one or the other, and the one you don't pick gets eliminated forever from the universe
Oh my
Mm.
god.
as if it never existed. And then you
say-
keep, and so you start with these small things and you make it bigger and bigger and bigger until all of a sudden you're choosing between like love and human agency, right? And so
Oh my god.
we're gonna pancakes or waffles it, but with Bob Fosse musicals. So
Great.
we're gonna come
do
up
it.
with. There will only be one musical remaining. We'll have to all 3 come to a consensus, or we'll outvote each other.
Mhm.
So we're gonna start with the Pajama Game or Damn Yankees.
Damn Yankee. Oh, wait, what am I getting rid of?
What are you keeping?
Keeping.
What am I keeping? Damn Yankees.
Hmm.
I don't think RJ knows these two.
I don't, but I'll pick Damn Yankees because it feels like Mattress is what or Bye Bye Birdie is a version of the Pajama Game that I would like more. I don't know. I don't know what the Pajama Game is about.
I don't know
Well,
the Pajama Game either.
It's set, I believe it's set in a factory where they make pajamas.
Yeah.
So it's
I think that's right. It's
It's
Doris Day.
It's Kinky Boots.
It's Kinky Boots but pajamas.
Well,
Kinky
I
pajamas.
apologize to my labor organizing great grandfather, but I don't know what the Pajama Game is about. So I'm also gonna pick Damn Yankees. So that one wins.
Okay, so
Damn Yankees or How to Succeed
How
in
to
Business.
how to
without reading-
succeed in business.
Okay, I would have picked Damn Yankees, but I have been outvoted.
I
So,
love How to Succeed.
all right.
Dream roll. Dream roll.
How to Succeed or Sweet Charity?
How to Succeed. Sweet Charity's very good though.
I'll pick How to Succeed.
I'm going to go with How to Succeed over Sweet Charity as well.
Yeah.
How to Succeed or Pippin?
How to fucking succeed. I do not like Pippin.
Molly, I think I might pick Pippin. So Molly,
I'm going to
I'll
pick
give it to you.
Pippin too. I'm so sorry. Ah!
I think Pippin is so muddled in what it's trying to say. I don't think it's that
It's so
good.
funny because I know what the last 2 are, and
I
it's gonna
don't-
be those ones.
I don't think it's going to matter that we pick
It's
Pippin because the
not
next
a
one
big-
is Pippin or Chicago.
Chicago.
We're all picking Chicago. So it is Chicago
or
versus
Cabaret.
Cabaret is the only real question this would ever be about.
Absolutely.
What are we keeping?
Non sequitur. I thought the first one will actually be pancakes or waffles, so we would have had to be like waffles or the Pajama Game. And it was like, waffles are better.
I think I'll
I
keep
think,
waffles.
I think I'll
Pajama
keep
Game.
waffles. So we could have had waffles or Cabaret.
RJ, you have to make a decision. Stop stalling. I know what you're doing right now. I'm picking Chicago. I'm picking Chicago.
RJ?
Because it's like me and I have enjoyed one more like,
You're going to pick Chicago.
yeah, quantitatively more times. I think I would pick Chicago too.
I also would pick Chicago.
That's it. I'm so sorry,
Do you
everyone.
think Cabaret
We're
has
gonna
never
delete
existed?
the files for this
Yeah.
podcast now because you made
I
it
think-
go away from the
I think-
universe.
Do you think
Cabaret is a stronger dramatic piece,
Mhm.
but I like the music of Chicago more.
Do you think it's also because like we all experienced Chicago, the movie musical, like
In Chicago.
well,
Or
like
just, like, as-
we were
as a
alive when
part
it
of our
happened. Yeah,
time.
like it was like
Potentially. I mean, it was very much, there's a lot to be said for musicals that hit me in high school, and Chicago was a lot more understandable to me in high school, obviously, than Cabaret was.
yeah.
I just think that ultimately Chicago has more fun in it, which I understand why Cabaret is less fun. It is about
totally.
Nazis,
Yeah.
but I will pick Joy even though Cabaret might be more important than Chicago.
Yes, I agree.
And it's based on Machinal, everybody's favorite play. So you both remember Machinal,
Sophie
right?
Treadwell, absolutely.
Sophie Treadwell. RJ went to class. Adam.
Mom, I also went to class.
Sometimes you
clear.
did.
Sometimes
I-
you did.
I
Absolutely, you did
definitely-
show up sometime.
I definitely have a degree, and that's what's important at the end of the day. Well, thank you for listening and singing along, girlies. And,
Girls, gays, and theys. I've been wanting to drop that one into the podcast somewhere.
and
gays, and
till-
theys.
this is
Girls,
now
gays, and
3 hours
theys.
and 4 minutes into this
Recording.
Zoom, being
call.
on.
Yes. the
Uh-huh.
Zoom one.
And so with
Bienvenue?
that,
Not bienvenue.
One more thing I want to say, which is that there was a line in this article about queerness in the cabaret, and it said that it contained unmistakable gay innuendo, which I think should be the new name of our podcast.
yeah, for sure.
UGI.
Unmistakable camp innuendo.
Oh, it's 11:30. Our lights just
It's
turned off.
11:30. Our lights just turned off. Life is a cabaret, old chum. I love a cabaret. Oh, RJ's eating cake.
Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to RJ. Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
Is there anybody going to listen to my story? All about the girl who came to stay.
As a stranger to our shores, the least I can do is offer you some Ivy League hospitality. This is Jude. This is my sister.
My God, you have perfect teeth.
What are you gonna do if you don't go back to college? What any irresponsible, unmotivated dropout would do? Go to New York, like tonight.
All you need is love.
Is she a part of your ride?
God, I hope so. Right. Just want to get your eyes right.
As blissful as you two are in the throes of young love, I got a date with Uncle Sam.
We're in the middle of a revolution, Jude. And what are you doing? Doodles and cartoons?
Oh, I'm sorry I'm not the man with the megaphone, but this is what I do.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart.
Music's the only thing that makes sense anymore, man.
We can start
Play it loud enough, keeps the demons at bay.
better, 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 better. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing. Nothing's gonna change my world.
Discovering voices. Building worlds. The Ampliverse.